Hi, it's Bumble. Welcome back to my channel. So I ended up taking a longer break because yesterday I recorded videos for like 8 to 10 hours or something, so like the whole day pretty much of just my opinions on like the first 50 or so characters in this game. And then now it's today and I took a break for the entire day and did other stuff, and that was good and that was kind of bad. It was good in that I think I needed a break from this game for a bit, but it was bad because I'm at a point where I'm like starting to forget things now, but I still have half the cast to talk about. But that's okay. That might just mean there might be like shorter descriptions and opinions I have on characters. We'll see. It's like I'm losing less of my fixation on this game as the days go by since I finished my second playthrough. I don't know. Anyway, so the last one we did was Barry. He's number 50, and now we're going to talk about Tyrell. He's one of those characters where I like him, but I don't really like the route. It's kind of complicated for me, but let's talk about outfits and stuff. I like his outfit. I like that the blue, his entire outfit is just different towels. I like the blue towel that he wears as a jacket, and it has this white fuzzy part that like lines the jacket and it kind of looks like a hood. The pants are also cool. I like that they just have this like towel texture. Everything just looks really soft. And then he has these little fuzzy slippers, but they're not like the Mateo bedroom slippers. They're like just like open-toed slippers. The only thing that bothers me is like they're fuzzy, but actually no, wait, I keep forgetting he's a towel. I was going to say, but if you're walking around and things are wet, but that's probably the whole point. The thing I don't like, and it's something another character has, I can't remember who right now, where they'll have like a thing around their neck that kind of looks like a napkin sort of or whatever. I just don't really like the look of whatever that accessory is in general, and I keep seeing it on multiple characters. The one thing I'm confused about is with his hair is there's like this silver part that's like connected to his head, and then there's his hair, like his hair is going through something. I can't tell what it is though, because you know that everything's supposed to be like a reference to the object or something. And then I forgot what the realized design looks like. The realized design, I don't really care for it. I'm glad it's still towels, like he's just wearing actual towels around him. I really liked the towel jacket, and that gets removed, and that's pretty much the whole change to the outfit. It's that, and then the thing around his neck gets replaced with a string, which I think looks slightly better, unless it's like tying the towel around his neck to him, like that's hanging off of his like shoulders. I don't think he needs a neck accessory. And then other than that, the outfit's pretty much the same, except the pants get changed out for like a towel around the waist. I don't know, this is one of those design things where it's supposed to be like the character gets hotter when they become more human, because I've noticed that with some of the outfits or whatever. But I really liked the big blue towel jacket in the original outfit, so I'm kind of sad for like the human design that it's gone. I was hoping it would turn into like a regular jacket, or like one of those like big fuzzy jackets, because there's like other characters in the game that have like big fuzzy jackets and stuff, either for like the realized design or the original design. Okay, personality wise, I like him. He's one of those that's just like I feel bad I forget about him sometimes. I think there's so many characters, there's so many characters that are like really intense and are just kind of like a lot, or they're wacky, or they're like more memorable in some way, and then there's ones that are like really chill, which I like, but then if they don't have like an interesting storyline or something with their personality that like kind of makes them more unique, they tend to be like a little forgettable. Like both Tyrell and Koa are like really like nice characters and stuff, but their routes are just kind of like whatever to me, and they don't really feel like as memorable as other characters, so I tend to forget them. I did think his backstory was interesting, but I also find it really confusing, because he at first doesn't want to tell you information about himself, Oh, I thought the individual story was going to be written in the wiki. I don't even remember, because his route, I think, is one of the shorter ones in the game, because this was the first character where I noticed that, where I was like, oh, that's it? The storyline's, like, already over? Because you're not helping him, like, solve a problem or anything, if I remember right. It's just, like, you're getting to know him, and that's, like, kind of about it. But he does show up in, like, other routes, which is cool. I think the thing that's more unique about Tyrell that I remember, and I feel bad about it, is I don't really remember him as much, but I remember the towel buddies. I thought they were really cute, and I like how the collectibles are like different little like towel buddies and stuff. Oh, actually, all of his collectibles are towel buddies, and there's a pig for the love ending, and there's a monkey for the hate ending, which is interesting. The pig one is really cute though. I like that one, but I love that every collectible is a towel buddy. But I feel like that also goes along with what I'm saying about the route not really being memorable and being too short. Of like, normally characters have more of a variety of like collectibles or things about them. Like Tyrell's whole backstory that you end up eventually getting is that in a previous house, like his original owner or whatever, there was like a bunch of towels that lived in a bathroom, and then the owner's grandkids played in mud and were dried off with towels, and I think Tyrell's supposed to be the towel that's at the bottom of the stack, so he didn't get used, but the rest of the other towels did. And the mud wasn't cleaned off or anything, so it hardened, it turned the towels into rags, and they all got thrown out. So it's basically like he lost all his friends. And I feel like that's pretty, like a pretty good backstory for like an object character and stuff. I always just find it interesting when the objects talk about like how they were like born in a warehouse and what that was like, or like their childhood, or like things with previous owners and stuff. It just forces me to think more about them as like objects, and not just remember like, oh yeah, they're like hot people in my house or whatever. Like that does sound like it would be sad. Like you don't think about it as a person, like if you had like a matching set of like plates or whatever, and if you throw some of them away, how does that affect them as objects? Or like Harper's thing about the chapstick dying, that's her friend, and to us it was just like, you know, we don't know the chapstick's sentient or that it's dating the hamper. We just think, oh, it melted in the wash, we gotta throw it out, you know. It reminds me to put myself in the shoes of these objects as you're interacting with characters. But the thing I find confusing with the backstory is like Skylar's saying, and you see it with like characters in your house, that like every table is the same character or whatever, and just having that logic of like all the copies of it of something is like the same person. I think it's, even if, I don't know if it's just specifically like for your house or if it's everywhere, because Skylar implies it's everywhere, but then Wendlyn mentions about talking to a window in a different house, implied to be like a different person. And then Tyrell's thing, it makes me confused because it's a team of towels. It's not like they're different, like one of them's a blanket and one of them's a towel or something, right? Understand if it was like different characters. So it's like a set of towels, which I assumed would all be the same person by that other logic, but they're described as his friends, so they're all like individuals. I don't know, it gets kind of confusing. That's like one of the only things I remembered about his route was that backstory, the towel buddies, and then when you get his like romance or friend ending, he described, oh wait, no, I'm remembering more stuff about his route. He has this dream of wanting to be a beach towel and getting to sit in the sun all day and help people dry off. And then if you romance or befriend him, it's probably the romance thing, you can talk about wanting to go to the beach with him and using him as a towel. And I know the whole point of turning them into humans is like they're not objects anymore, but I kind of had assumed and was hoping like you turn him into a human, you leave the house, and even though he's not a towel anymore, you would get to go to the beach with him and just hang out at the beach there, instead of him having to be a towel and dry people off. You just hang out as like two humans at the beach and stuff, and that didn't happen. I do like with his realization ending though, he ends up working at a car wash and then he makes towel buddies and gives them out to people. The art and the credits for him was kind of cute, where it was Tyrell and he was holding out a towel buddy to this kid that looks so excited. But yeah, Tyrell's a nice guy. I liked talking to him. I think his backstory is kind of interesting in like an object way and stuff, and I like his dream about wanting to be a beach towel, even though he's probably, because he's like a towel in your house used for like drying things, he's probably too small to be a beach towel, which is something you can tell him. And then he appears in other stories. I mostly just, oh yeah, because he appears in Abel's and he's used to like dry Abel off, and I think it's kind of a sad interaction because Abel's being so freaking huffy about not wanting help, and Tyrell's just like, oh, am I not good enough to get this spill off of you? Am I not allowed to do my job anymore? And it's just like, aw. And then you end up using one of the towel buddies as a towel to clean Abel off instead, and it's supposed to be like a bonding moment between you two. And I do like if you have a love ending with Tyrell before that dialogue. I remember him saying like, oh, I knew my lover was good enough at like cleaning spills or something. And they also appears in Arma's route, which I was impressed by. I was worried about the part that he shows up in because it's a section of the route where there's a house fire and Tyrell offers to jump on the fire to try to put it out, which I'm assuming in real life I think you can also do that if using like a towel or something to put out a fire. But I thought it was only if it was like made out of a fire resistant material. I'm imagining if it's just like a regular towel in your house, wouldn't it catch on fire? But the fact that they offered to do that and like the towel's sentient, you know, that's impressive, honestly. But yeah, that's my only thing is like his route wasn't super duper memorable. The fact that it took me a while to even remember what the route was about makes me feel a little bad. There just wasn't really a lot about him that stood out to me, and my main complaint is that his route was too short to the point where when I finished it I was like, oh, is that it? Is that the whole route? I think it's only like 2 to 3 interactions and that's it, and the conversations aren't long or anything. So it's kind of a bummer that just happens with this game, where some characters get like really really long routes and sometimes they're like a little too long in my opinion. Like I really don't think Kopi's needed to be like 13 interactions, even though she's one of my favorite characters. And then there's ones like Tyrell where it's like so short that I feel like I'm not even processing the route in my mind, and it's just kind of over, and it's like, okay, I guess I have to move on to the next character. All right, so next is Faria. She's your first aid kit. I like her. I thought she was cool. Let's talk about her design. I think it's called the hijab. I like that it's made out of bandages, and then it has these little clips on it that I think are supposed to be a different kind of bandage. And I like that the material of it actually does, like with the way it's drawn, look kind of like fabric anyway, but it also looks, it's like I look at it and I can feel in my mind like the texture of a band-aid, how they're usually kind of soft. I think that was really clever, like design wise. I really like her jacket. Is it supposed to be like the outside of the first aid kit? I actually like for the first aid kit, like the design of it as an object and not as the character. Like when I think first aid kits, I always think of like the super basic design of like a white, like little plastic box or something with the red cross on it, which is fine. It's easily recognizable, but I like that instead the the first aid kit in your house is like this little baggy thing that's red as the main color, because then I was able to make like a super cool like human design, just give like more to work with. Like I really like her jacket with the little heart, with the little heartbeat thing on it. I think her stethoscope thing is actually really cute, but it kind of reminds me of a toy. I don't know if it's supposed to be a toy because it looks like it's like, when I think of stethoscope, I think of the ones of the doctor where they're like made out of metal and they're more like professional looking, but hers, I mean, it could just be because she's an object. Maybe it's like an object version of a stethoscope. looks like it's made out of like a plasticky material or something. Like it's not very hard, and I think mostly because it has these two little hearts on it that it just, like, the rest of the outfit's fine, but that's just really funny to me. And then one of my favorite things with characters' little like accessories and equipments and stuff in the humanish, I don't know what to call it. Like, not, I can't say human forms because they do get realized and turned into humans. But like, you know, when you use the glasses and it's like they're representative, they're like the personification, humanized form, but they're still the like the regular form, I guess is what I can call it. Anyway, I like that their accessories, like Mitchell's like sandwich spread notebook, it ends up like being made out of the material they're supposed to be, and a lot of the time it's really cool. Like her clipboard, I never noticed in the game, the back of it is just literally a band-aid, and then her pen, I think it's like an EpiPen or something. It's a little hard for me to like tell what it is. And then she has this like squishy, I know what the material is, but I can't remember what it is right now. This like see-through squishy material as like pockets for medical supplies on, I thought they were like shorts at first, but I think it's just the bottom part of her jacket. And then her pants are really cool where they look like they're like made out of metal or something, but I think it's actually supposed to be some kind of foil. I never have seen her shoes before. I actually really like her boots because, I mean, they're supposed to be like different band-aids or something, but the way they're placed makes it look like it's just a regular design, and I think her shoes actually look really cool. I love that they're red to like, they have the red and white scheme to match with the jacket. I just think her design's really fun, and it does a good job of being like you're like a specific occupation that exists in the real world, but also like you're an object sort of thing. I just think it's fun. It's like a creative way to use some of the, like the materials, because like a first aid kit, it has like a lot of things in it of like mostly band-aids but also other stuff, so I think that's cool. What was the realized design? I remember I liked her outfit. I thought it was cute, because I think it's a dress if I remember right. Yeah, because the hijab, it gets replaced with this like, or not replace, it gets this like rose pattern on it, which was cool. And then her dress is really cute. It feels like an actual outfit, not like a object turned human, but like still object, because it's red with these like white stripes and it has little hearts and little crosses on it, but just looks like it would be a regular outfit. I think her bag is adorable. She ends up keeping the same stethoscope, and it ends up being a purse, but it has a little drawing of like a band-aid with angel wings on it. And then she has like leggings or something that has the same design as the shoes of like this specific type of band-aid and stuff. I think her outfit's interesting. I actually like that, like I remember Arma's, for example, with her being like a firefighter, like she has that kind of outfit, and then I think stays this, or it becomes like an actual uniform when she gets realized, kind of like how Jock gets an actual pirate's outfit. I actually like that Faria's just becomes like a casual outfit and not like a doctor's outfit or anything. Like she ends up having like full-on heels and everything, and they're just normal heels and stuff. I think it's a cute outfit. I like that idea better for realized outfits of turning characters humans, where it's like they don't have to dress as their job anymore. They can just wear like whatever they want, you know? I mean, I don't like that for every character, because I was really sad that Maggie didn't get to keep her like detective uniform. Faria in my first playthrough was a character I met like towards the very end. I just didn't really ever go into the downstairs bathroom that much, and I kind of regret that, because not just because she's like a fun character and I like her route, but like her and Johnny are like exclusive to the downstairs bathroom, and I didn't realize that was a thing. I thought like both bathrooms were the same, and then I realized like, oh yeah, the bathtub isn't here. But they have a lot of similar objects and stuff. Anyway, yeah, I like her outfits. I like her personality of her. She almost reminds me of like a mad scientist in a sense, just of that she she's like a medical professional and stuff, and of course she wants to help you and do her job of being a first aid kit, but she also gets like really excited about you being injured, not in like a sick or super gross way, or like it's a little gross, of like the things she describes, not like her behavior, I think. Like if you romance her, she says something about wanting to try a medical procedure on you, or she asks you sometimes if you're like injured and she's trying to find the cause of it, but she doesn't really have all the medical information immediately, so she ends up jumping to the worst conclusions all the time, and you have to like correct her. But just the fact that she's such a cheerful character and loves her job, but at the same time she like almost kind of wants you to be injured and is excited about injuries and stuff. I find it kind of funny. Her descriptions do get like a little graphic of some stuff with medical things. I mean, I'm someone where that doesn't bother me, but I could see it bothering like other people. But it's not enough where I think it needs like a content warning. Maybe for some people, I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about that with the way she talks. But yeah, I love her enthusiasm and everything. I like her route. I like that it's about her wanting to become a doctor. And her first conversation is interesting, where it's supposed to be like kind of played for laughs, of like she doesn't know, she like jumps to conclusions about symptoms and whatever, but then as I went through the route I realized, oh, it's because she doesn't know the medical stuff, which I feel like it makes sense because she's a first aid kit and not like an object that's in like a doctor's thing or something. Like with the first aid kit, you know, it's just like, yeah, there's medical stuff in there, but it's like you using the first aid kit, like keeping it in your house, not really like you're at the doctor and it's like a medical professional who's using this stuff, and there's only a limited amount of object. You can't do surgery on yourself with like a first aid kit. So I feel like maybe that's the reason why she doesn't have all the like medical knowledge in the world and stuff. I know I originally called her a medical professional, but I couldn't think of another word. But yeah, her route is about becoming a doctor, and you end up helping her study. And I like that all of her collectibles are actually required to like get a good ending with her and stuff, because they're all part of her medical textbook, and you have to go in and read them and everything, and then you eventually do this really long quiz with her where you quiz her on information and tell her if it's like correct or not. And if you do a good job, which I always used a guide for it, so I never actually read the collectibles, but if you do good, she passes her test, and the route ends with her like becoming a doctor. And then I think it's kind of interesting the way that carries over her into her realization, where she actually does, I don't remember if she becomes a nurse or doctor specifically, but she's still learning and doing her education and stuff. And they mention at first like, you have no experience, but you have all this knowledge because of like the stuff you did in her route when she becomes human. And they end up taking her in, and then she ends up working there, and she's really happy about it. The one thing I didn't like is the romance dialogue once you realize her, the one from the credits, where it says that she comes over to visit for study sessions, which is cool, but then they always end with her like falling asleep. Like, I know it's stuff like to help her, and that's how you bond during her route, but I was kind of hoping for something like slightly more romantic rather than just the same stuff you were already doing, you know, during her route. But yeah, that's it. I don't remember her appearing in other people's routes, if I remember correctly. One that I was surprised she didn't appear in, but then once I did her route, I understood why, is during Sinclair's route, you have the opportunity to talk to a couple of objects, and you end up summoning Arma and asking her about Sinclair's condition, and she says, oh, I'm not a doctor or anything, but because of my experience as like a first responder, due to her being a like firefighter and stuff, and then she gives you her opinion on like she thinks Sinclair could possibly have like head trauma or something, or is having hallucinations. And I get that she could technically work for giving that dialogue, but I feel like Faria being the first aid kit could fit better. Like I know I said earlier, like I know the reason why probably is because like Faria's thing is about studying to be a doctor, so it's like during her route, so she doesn't know everything. She wouldn't be able to give an accurate diagnosis. But if the whole thing is that she's studying anatomy and stuff, you think maybe she'd be able to help, or not just like anatomy, but like, I mean, I know she's studying human anatomy, and it's that Sinclair is actually a sink, so it's not like she could look at his pipes and know like, oh, it's this thing. But I thought, since she also has to study symptoms and other stuff, I feel like it would make sense where she would probably be able to give a more like accurate diagnosis. I don't know, just the fact that you ask Arma specifically like what is Sinclair's medical diagnosis and not like your first aid kit felt a little weird, but oh well. But yeah, she's a fun character. I liked her route. I liked her morbid curiosity about the world of medicine and stuff. And even though her route is just like, you have conversations, but it's mostly about her like studying, and then you quiz her, and that's kind of about it. Like, you don't really learn a lot about her as like a person outside of her interest in medicine and stuff. But I feel like that was okay. I feel like even the route could have been boring if she wasn't so enthusiastic and fun to interact with, is my opinion. But she's cool. Okay, next we have Dasha. Dasha is like another one of my favorites, actually. I really enjoyed her route. And I never ended up setting her up with Abel, partially because I liked Dasha so much. Let me see with her design. I like her hair. I don't know why it's blue and the rest of her is gray, but it's cool. It's cool. And I like that the like shoulder pads of her jacket have like a little mini like computer on there, and the lamp and everything, which kind of reminds me, and I only remembered to do it like towards the end of the game, the little animation of interacting with the object has her mentioning like, look how strong I am, and she like jumps, like the desk sort of does a little hop, and all of the furniture on it, the rest of it flies into the air, not like insanely high, and then back down, if I remember right, which is crazy because like, what if they didn't, it's supposed to be showing her strength and stuff, and I don't think she would have done it if she didn't think she could catch them. But that's crazy, the fact that she can do that. That's the thing that's also weird to me, of like the characters, their furniture, they're not supposed to move. It is interesting though, between how you interact with them with the glasses and without the glasses. Like in the overworld, it's like without the glasses all they can do is kind of shuffle a bit, and that's it. But then when you have the glasses, they can like actually speak to you with their overworld line, and they do some kind of animation. And some of them are so animated, the fact that they're able to like to jump like that, or like physically move or push themselves up or do all this crazy stuff, is wild to me. And it feels a little funny because like they're so animated in that sense as the objects if you use the glasses, but then most of them with their realization, they're just like, holy shit, I have a human body, and they're able to like move their arms, or like the music ones sing a little note, or I think about Dorian doing the jump rope thing or whatever. So I find that funny, but that was an animation that surprised me. That was cool. I think her design's okay. I don't like dislike. I think I'm like neutral towards it. I do like the pattern, like the wood pattern on the jacket, and how it's not actually super visible, and like the top being part of the shelves and stuff. I just noticed about the wires of like connecting the little mini computer to, there's like a outlet thing on part of her jacket, but it looks kind of cool. The fact that I didn't notice those wires at first, I think is like, it's a good design, because it just kind of looked like something on her neck. I almost thought of it as like a necklace or something. Her pants look pretty normal. They just look like pants, and she has boots, and I like that it has like little mini dressers on it because it makes it the handles of the dress of the, why do I keep saying dresser? No, of the drawers. I was gonna say cabinet, and I remembered, oh yeah, Jerry the junk drawer lives there, so it's a drawer. They look like just little lines on the shoes, so I feel like it's all right. The realized design, it's kind of similar, of still being like a top and then her pants and shoes. I don't like her realized pants because they have this side part that's just brown. It's supposed to kind of look like a desk and then like the dark space under a desk. But it still looks too desk-like. It still looks too furniture-like to me with the pattern on the side of the pants. That I really don't like it. I kind of miss her jacket, but it is nice to be able to see her arms. I actually like her top. I like how a lot of the realized characters, they wear shirts, like graphic shirts with puns based on what object they originally were. I like that hers says Surface Top, and it has this like boob cutout window of the computer screen on her shirt, but it's not really like a boob window. It's just like a hole because it isn't in the area of the boobs. It's like on the collarbone. Yeah, it's all right. I like the shirt. I don't really like the rest of the outfit. That's pretty much about it. Personality wise, I love Dasha. I think she's great. I find her kind of a little sad to talk to, in that because her whole route is about dating, and you have the opportunity during those dates to flirt with her, and you can tell her like how beautiful she is and stuff, and she'll get really embarrassed about it and blush, because not just because you're complimenting her, but she mentions about how normally people describe her as like really strong and stuff, and about her physical strength, and no one really comments on like her appearance and like you calling her pretty. Like, she mentions that those are words she usually doesn't hear, and I thought that was kind of sad. I do like flirting with her through her route and getting her a little flustered. It's kind of fun. But she's an absolute sweetheart. She, like, you can tell she cares a lot about other people and like really wants to help the player, and she's such a nice person, and I really liked that. I like that whenever you talk to her, you have the option to continue with the route, but you also have the option to ask her to just lift you up, and I think that was kind of funny. And her route, because she asks you how your like dating stuff is, and she doesn't think you're very good, so she offers to do practice dates with you. So the whole route is doing practice dates where you can take her to locations. And I love her collectibles because they're little like crayon drawings done by her, that represent like the places that you're going to, and they stay on screen throughout the entire date, so you remember where you're supposed to be. There's 3 of them, so there's only 3 collectibles, and you get them like automatically as you're doing the dates. I think they're cute. I like how she has her signature on there, with the little doodle of the table underneath, and I think that's the same signature she has, or like a very similar one on her Polaroids, so that's kind of cool. But she has these like little stick figure drawings. There's one for an Italian restaurant. I like the one for the bowling alley, and I like how it has a little sign that just says bowling alley, with a smiley face on him. And then the strip club one is also kind of cool. And they're not even bad drawings either. I think they're actually really cute, and they're like colored in, and she put like effort into it. Like, I really like the way for her illustration, like the table is drawn. Like, there's actually like shading and stuff in there, and it balances out the like stick figure people. But I think they're cute. And I think they do serve a good purpose of like staying on the screen so I can remember like what location we're supposed to be in and which date I'm on. So it's a restaurant, a bowling alley, and a strip club. I think you can go with like any order, but I always did it in like the order of like how casual I thought the locations were. So I always did the bowling alley first because I thought like that would probably be like a fun first date of just like go bowling, where you're doing an activity but you still get to hang out. And then I always did the Italian restaurant as like a second one, because then it's like you know each other a little bit and you're at this restaurant, you get to like eat, and it's like a little bit more intimate. And then I stayed a strip club for the end because I thought like, okay, you're in like a more sexual place and whatever. I thought that would be interesting to have for a third location. And I like how during that one you can tell her that you don't really care about the strippers and you only care about her, and then you can ask her like, oh, do you want to head home with me sometime? And then your fourth date is you like taking her home, and it's like, what do you do? And you walk your date to the door, and then she invites you in for coffee, and you can end up like cuddling or doing other things. And then and it's very clear throughout the little practice dates. It might as well be like you're actually at these locations and doing this stuff. Like it isn't really much talking with her in a sense, because it's mostly just she asks you like, here's our scenario, what do you do? And she reacts accordingly, and that's it. But I think it's fun. I like the different options that you have. Like there's usually like a rude option. There's usually like 4 options, like a rude option, like a nice option, like a flirty option. I don't remember what the other one is. And some of them are kind of funny. And you can sometimes pick the funny ones and they actually work and stuff. Like let me see if I can remember what some of the options are. Like for the bowling one, when you have to get your shoes, you have the option to say to like look away and like give her privacy to ask about the shoes, or to shout super loudly, what is your biggest foot size? I just would pick the one that's just like, okay, you go up to the counter and you get your shoes, and she says something of like, that's a good choice, there's no embarrassment about like feet or whatever. And then she describes putting your names in into it's like the super ancient bowling computers, and you could put one of your nicknames as like butt and ass. I always went with the cute ones. So it's just like funny dialogue options with all 3 of those locations. Or like with the strip club one, when you tip the dancer, you can tip with what's in your pocket, which is described as like an Apple gift card or something for like $4. It's supposed to be the wrong option. And then I like with the Italian restaurant date, when she asks about the bill, I assumed at first you had to say like you already paid the bill when she was in the bathroom, and then I did it again and I picked a different option. I realized like, oh, she kind of likes competition of stuff, and she's like competitive, and like the option that seems to make her happiest is if you arm wrestle for the bill, but specifically that the winner has to pay. If you pick the loser, she's like, oh, you didn't learn anything or whatever, because it's that you're supposed to be fighting on like to be courteous and stuff. And yeah, but I find that one funny. And then she also can appear in, when you do chances like G&G game, where she doesn't really like affect your quest. She just kind of has fun commentary, but it still sounds like she's having a good time. And then she shows up in Gaia's thing, where she talks about like fox domestication. And then I think the most important role she has is in Shelly's route, where she's the one that breaks the news to Shelly about like how her anxiety makes it hard for the other objects to talk to her. And then Shelly ends up being really sad, and you have the option to tell Dasha of like, could you be like a little bit nicer about it? But I think Dasha being the one to break hard news to someone is probably a good choice. But yeah, I like her a lot. She's like a very sweet character. I like with her realization ending, she goes to like make food for people, and then delivers like weekly meals to your house. The one thing about her that does make me sad is, again, it's because she's so connected with Abel, in that like they don't appear in each other's routes, but it's supposed to kind of be that you talk about them to each other a bit, or at least with Abel I think it pops up. and it becomes clear that they have like feelings for each other. They're both too shy to make the first move, and I never put them together, so I don't know how it turns out. But I hate the fact, and it kind of ruins the endings for them to me, of like, if you don't put them together, they're both clearly unhappy. Even if you get like a love ending with them individually, it's sort of treated as like there's something missing from their life. And like with the other couples, if you don't put them together, you don't get that dialogue at all, so that just kind of bothers me. But yeah, I didn't want to put them together, but also because I didn't like Abel, and I liked Dasha, and I wanted her for myself. But yeah, she's cool. Okay, sorry, I'm trying to look at the names to figure out where I'm at. Okay, and then next is Jerry. Jerry's one of those I'm not going to ever forget, kind of like Stella, because I got a hate ending with Jerry. I thought Jerry, because there's several routes where it's like someone has some kind of problem, and it could be like an unhealthy problem, and you have to help them form healthy habits, or help them get over the thing. Kind of Jerry and Hoove are like they go through the exact same problem, but it's weird how the game treats them, where like with Hoove, you're supposed to help him clear out his baggage, and then he ends up feeling a lot lighter and feeling a lot happier, and you help him like actually throw stuff away. You're supposed to be throwing things away. And then with Jerry's, it's also a route of he has too much stuff inside of him, but if you throw any of it away, he gets really mad, which once I thought about it a bit more, I understood. What you're supposed to do with Jerry, and I did not realize that the first time, was you're supposed to convince him like, oh, we don't have to throw your stuff away, but if we could recycle it or make it into something new, and you turn it into art, and you end up building a carousel together. I'm kind of mad at myself that I got a hate ending with Jerry immediately, because not during the first interaction, but during the second interaction, because if you do it right, Jerry's route can literally be done in your first interaction with him. It's just like a lot of dialogue. But yeah, if you would say to throw it away or whatever, I think Celia shows up, and then you have to talk to Jerry again, and then he like automatically like hates you or something. It's just annoying, because with the characters, I feel like it's not always, if it's like your first time playing, super obvious which ones you're supposed to like help them with their problem and which ones you're not supposed to. Like with Bathsheba, for example, of like, she says she wants to make friends, but then she actually doesn't want to make friends, and you're just supposed to flatter her the whole time, and that's it. Like if you're kind of mean to her, like I was mean to her mostly to like see like maybe we can kind of humble her down a bit, and then she'd maybe want to become friends with people or something, but no, you're not supposed to do that. With Jerry, now that I've given it some more thoughts, I guess it makes sense why you're not supposed to throw things away and it gets him mad. I realized, I was like, oh yeah, it's not just that he's a regular drawer or whatever, so emptying him would probably be like fine, you know, if it was a regular drawer, you put stuff back in. The fact that it's specifically a junk drawer, so if you're getting rid of all the junk, it's like he kind of doesn't serve a purpose. He's just like a regular drawer, you know. So I guess in that way it makes sense. It just, I feel like from the dialogue it also wasn't super obvious. I feel like when you talk to Jerry, you kind of have to be on eggshells, because you usually have two options that are like, and one of them is about like throwing things away, and one is about like, we don't have to throw things away. Like in order to get the dialogue about recycling things and stuff, you have to go through several other like dialogue branches. It just kind of keeps, the conversation just kind of keeps going and going, and you have to insist on like picking the ones where you're like not throwing it away. You're like trying to convince him, but it doesn't really feel like you're convincing him. I feel like it's kind of tricky. Like once I did the second time and I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I think because the first time I picked an option about as like a joke of like turning it into art and then putting it into the dumpster or something. I don't remember what I clicked, But yeah, now that I think about it, I'm like, okay, it's like easier than I originally thought it was. But yeah, I got a hate ending with him, and then I used the candy, and then I got the friend ending. But you know, when I was doing the romance route, I got the romance thing the first time. I think because when you become friends with him, if you use the candy, I think you just unlock the carousel anyway. I don't completely remember because it's like your friends now and stuff. But I like when you just do his full route without like the candy, and you work together to build the carousel. And it actually looks kind of cute, and ends up becoming a actual physical thing on a shelf in the office, and it even like lights up and everything, like it's constantly lit, even like at nighttime when you're wandering around. I think that's pretty cool. I like when there's physical stuff from your conversations and it pops up in the real world, but like related to a character. Like Vaughn has a similar thing where there's a little mouse that shows up. And I like that if you talk to the carousel, instead of being Jerry, it's the guy Art, because you turned the junk in the drawer into your carousel is considered an art piece, and I just think that's a really cool detail. So that's pretty much Jerry's route. It's very short, but I feel like it works. The one things I'm bummed about is I like Jerry, so the fact that like the route is so short, it's just a one-time interaction thing and then you're done, and then from there you just get the repeating dialogue based on whatever ending you get, and you don't get to keep talking to Jerry is a bummer, because I think he's a really interesting character. We didn't talk about his outfit. Let me see. Jerry. There he is. I like his outfit. I think it's cool. I like that it's so busy because it's all this junk. There's like a billion little details on it of like CDs and little cards and earbuds and so many things I did not notice throughout the game. I like that it's like an actual jacket, but it looks like it's made out of wood, and then his shirt is like the drawers. I always think that's interesting with the design, where it's like there's some kind of outerwear like a jacket, and then there's some kind of shirt, but it's supposed to represent like the outside of the object and then the inside of the object, if that makes sense. And then the pants, it's like it's a normal outfit of like a jacket, the bow tie, the shirt, and the pants, just that it's covered, besides the wood texture, it's covered in like all of this stuff. Like he has pockets with like just random crap in there, and then these little like wooden shoes. I think he has socks too. It looks like they're striped, but I can't tell what the socks are. And I like the little staples on the shoes. I think that looks cool. But yeah, it's a fun design. It's just a lot to look at once. I feel like I'm glad I'm able to zoom in, because there's like a billion details. There's like used stickers and rubber bands, and there's a little flower on his jacket I never noticed until right now. That's made out of like little pieces of paper, and there's buttons and things. I'm actually surprised that like the buttons on his jacket aren't used as like jacket buttons. They're like in a similar place, but they don't really line up quite right. I like how there's multiple earbuds that are on him, because like I'd probably shove earbuds into one of those. Actually, I think that is where I keep my earbuds, in a drawer. And then I like that he has a bow tie, and it's made out of like a card, like a playing card. And he has these like glasses. I don't think the glasses are made out of anything specific, but I like that they have a little tag on them, like they're supposed to maybe be like not actual glasses. And then his hair is full of like pencils, and there's a freaking light bulb in there for some reason. Do people usually shove light bulbs inside of junk drawers? I don't know. I think looking at his face is kind of funny, because he kind of looks like the singer Will Wood, and ever since I noticed that, I just cannot unsee it. But yeah, I like his outfit a lot. And then his realized outfit is basically like like the same outfit, but like made out of actual fabrics and less busy. Like he gets an actual shirt, and then he has a vest, on top of the shirt. And I like the vest because it's lined with buttons, but it's like actual little buttons and stuff, and none of them match. And he has this giant trench coat that's full of all these pockets of stuff like constantly sticking out. So it's like the same idea and even the same little objects that are sticking out, but it's not as messy. Like he doesn't have anything in his hair anymore. The pants are normal. The shoes still have the little staples thing. I just always find that really interesting. Like the shoes are made out of like wood. Of like how many characters have their object form shoes, but they just wear those as humans for some reason. It's a lot of them, and it's kind of funny. But yeah, I like his realized outfit as well because it's like a cleaner version of, you know, like he's a junk drawer, so he has all this stuff everywhere on him and his clothing and his hair and whatever, and then it gets cleaned up a bit where it's like the same concept as a human, but like he has like actual hair now and whatever, and it's just less messy. And I think that's kind of interesting and matches with this route of like you're kind of cleaning him up a little bit and then turning his junk stuff into art. It's cool. Apparently he can... Oh, wait, no, I forgot about that, actually. He shows up in the G&G campaign, which happened in my first playthrough because I decided to be the Guardian, and he was the apothecary. And he is able to help you a little bit. He's also a fun companion to have because there's 3 companions. There's Dasha, who I did for my second playthrough, and there's Jerry, which is from my first playthrough. And then if you pick the other class, because there's like a sword user, a bard, and then I think some kind of barbarian, Lux becomes your companion. And I think that's part of the reason you have to play the game like 3 different times or whatever to get all the collectibles. So I've only played it twice. I didn't pick the option that had Lux. I didn't even know Lux was someone you can have until I was reading about it, because there was a video that popped up on YouTube that was just something of like Lux rage baiting Chance and player in the G&G campaign for 10 minutes or whatever, and I didn't watch it yet, but I think that's probably really funny. I think to watch it as a video would probably be really funny, but like in gameplay, if I'm just trying to do the route for the first time and doing that class for the first time where I want to just enjoy Chance's story, it'd probably piss me off having Lux there. And then Jerry, I forgot, is in Holly's route where... Oh yeah, that's something that's also super funny to me, and I didn't get it at first until I did the route. I didn't really read in the data decks of like the characters' likes and dislikes that much. I never really read most of them, but I remember for Jerry, for Holly specifically, it just stuck out in my brain because it was funny. Her dislikes, it just says Jerry as one of the things, and I was like, oh, that's just someone that just straight up doesn't like someone else. Interesting. And then I realized when you do the route and she actually explains it, because Holly's usually like a nice person and stuff, and she'll tell you her opinions about people, where she'll be like, so-and-so's like really nice or whatever, but she's never like too mean about people. Her only thing with Jerry, it's not like she hates him as a person or anything, it's just, and it goes with this concept of being a junk drawer, where she passes out flyers and he takes like 20 of them, and her boss knows if she's like giving them all out individually to people, and then of course Jerry doesn't show up to the events. The boss is like, hey, what happened? You gave away all these flyers, and Holly doesn't know how to explain to her boss that the junk drawer that took 20 of them and then didn't show up to the event. So I can understand her job and getting her in trouble with her boss, that like it would piss her off about Jerry. And then their conversation's funny, where he's going to show up again, and she says that she was talking about someone named Terry, who's a terry cloth or whatever, who's like a new object, and Jerry buys it completely. And then if you come back again on the part where you're taking Holly on the date, you can hear Jerry talking to someone and talking about that conversation with Holly and trying to find out who Terry is. So I think that he has some like funny interactions and like other people's routes and stuff. Oh, apparently Jerry's short for Gerald. Is Gerald an actual name? It sounds kind of goofy to me. That's not even just a trivia thing that says so-and-so's nickname stands for this. I forgot that it showed up in one of Mayor Celia's things. But whenever someone calls someone else by, like, their full name, I never really know if they're, like, telling the truth, because usually I notice with, like, very fancy characters where they'll call someone by, like, a longer version of their name. Sometimes it's not actually their name. They're just trying to be, like, fancy or whatever. But yeah, Jerry just has one interaction. He only has two interactions if you decide to throw stuff away, and then it goes to a hate ending, and that's it. Like, I get it, but it does kind of suck. I just wish there was more, because he's a fun character to interact with. I liked when you're first talking to him, though, before you even bring up throwing away his stuff or whatever, because he starts describing his art collection to you, and I really like his descriptions where he's talking about the button and just the possibilities of, like, what could my treasures have been used for and whatever. And I think it's a fun perspective, and I find him funny. So yeah, that's the one thing about Jerry, is that his route is literally just one interaction, and then there's no new dialogue or anything for, like, the rest of the game. I think his realization is actually really sad. Like, in the credits, it ends up becoming better, where he ends up having all these model trains that he refuses to let the children move around. But you're able to move them around if you romance him, so that's kind of cool. But his dialogue, when you directly realize him, makes me really sad, because he literally asks you, can I be turned back into a junk drawer? And like, he just does not want to be a human. And even if he could get turned back into a junk drawer, he says he already knows the truth. It's too late. And it's supposed to be played off as kind of a little humorous, but I feel bad for him. The game never directly says it, but I'm guessing based off of the realization dialogue and how Jerry immediately reacts to being human, that he's autistic. Like, they don't say the word autistic, but they start talking about how he reacts to smells, and specifically about texture. Like the narrator says something like, oh, despite Jerry's collection, he's really sensitive to specific texture. Let me see if I can find it in here. Is it in here for the realization? Yeah, it's that he's overwhelmed by smells and textures and the pain of having a nervous system, and then that he ends up having a model train collection, but it's mostly the overwhelmed by smells and textures and the way they describe it and the way Jerry reacts to it. It kind of sounds like autism. But I don't know. That's just my guess on it. But I feel bad for him. He gets overwhelmed. It is funny he mentions about, like, whoa, I get to feel tall. I find that dialogue interesting. I forget how small the objects actually are. Like, a lot of them are, like, as objects, like, not as the human designs or whatever, you know, they're usually smaller than the player. So it's interesting with, like, Beverly and Jerry, where they're like, whoa, I'm tall now. I think Jerry literally says, like, I'm tall now, and they look back at the object they used to be and they're like, whoa, that's me. I remember Bev saying, like, all those little bottles and things, and Jerry being like, wow, my collection is so tiny, when he finally gets to see it from, like, a human POV. I do find it funny when you realize them. Skylar's like, are you sure you don't want to be open for this? Because I thought, I was worried for him. I thought because he wanted to stay in the drawer or something to be realized, I thought he was going to be a human crammed inside of a drawer, or, like, the drawer was going to break. But no, he thankfully ends up outside the desk, and then he's looking at his stuff, and he realizes how disgusting it smells. And then it's like he realizes how disgusting it is, and he's like, okay, this is why no one wanted to visit me. And then he gets immediately overwhelmed at having a nervous system and about textures and things and being exposed to fresh air, and he hates it, and he asks to go back to being a drawer, and he's not allowed. And then he talks about how even if he could go back, I think the line delivery was kind of funny, where it was something of like, even if I can go back to being a drawer, I'll always know the truth that I'm stinky. But the way he says stinky is kind of funny. So then he goes on a long walk and gets some fresh air. I'm surprised he doesn't just take a shower or something, but whatever. And then he leaves, and that's pretty much. I don't think you get a romantic option with him. If I remember right, I think he just leaves, but I don't completely remember. Maybe there's so I don't remember you get to physically touch him or anything, so that kind of sucks. But I feel like it fits with the character that you don't actually really get anything romantic with him, like at all with the dialogue, because he feels like someone I'd be friends with anyway, not really someone I'd want to romance. I don't know, but he's kind of a kooky character. But I think he's the only one that specifically asks, like, after being turned human, of like, hey, can I actually just be turned back into an object? Like, I understand that, like, when you bring up realization to a character, usually they're like, whoa, are you serious about this or whatever, of like, you want to turn me into a human and stuff. And some of them are excited and some of them are nervous. And I like that I get it for the player, it's supposed to be a give you a way out if you don't actually want to realize them, of like, you ask them about the stats, and you usually have some kind of dialogue that's like, yeah, we're going to turn you into a human or whatever. Or you're asking them, like, I like that there's usually some form where you're kind of asking them of like, do you actually want to do this? Like, you do get their consent to like turn them into a human, and that it is something they want. So I'm glad it's not, you're not just like forcing them like a magic wand of like, okay, you're a human person now and whatever. But yeah, the fact that Jerry wants to go back to being a drawer and stuff. I wish there was some way you could give them a test run of being a human without actually turning them into a human first, because I feel like that's pretty crazy to go from like a physical object, inanimate object, to being a human person. Like Sam points it out too, of like, they don't know what they're getting into, besides the fact that they have to interact with the human world. The fact they just end up with a human body and they become so much more understanding of how the player character interacts with things and whatever, and about being a human person, where they're like, whoa, do you feel like this? Have you been going through this the whole time and stuff? They finally understand like your perspective as the human, and it's just crazy, you know? But that's like a big change, and you kind of just, it's just kind of thrust upon them, and then that's that. But I do find it interesting that a lot of them, it's like they become human, you have the option to ask them if they want sex or some kind of physical thing. They do that. You don't even really give them time for their body. You spend like the night doing whatever or hanging out or something, and then the next morning they leave. Like, the fact you don't get to give them some kind of crash course on how to be human or like prepare them for anything, they just go and they have to go and find their way on their own, is kind of sad. Okay, so next we're talking about Penelope. I like Penelope a lot. I think she has some of the funniest lines in the game, or some of my favorites. Where is she? I feel like she's kind of like, design-wise, the female equivalent of Jerry. They're both like nerds in like a specific way. Not that their personalities are similar, but the designs remind me of each other, you know? Yeah, Penelope, office supplies. Like, she's kind of like Jerry with like the really messy hair and the glasses and stuff, and being covered in like all of these little objects. I like that her ponytail holder is a pencil holder with pencils and the little paper clips in her hair, and it's kind of subtle. Like, she has black hair, but she has all these red and blue sections. I don't know what it's supposed to be exactly, like as an object, what it's supposed to represent, unless it's like ribbons and things, because her hair kind of springs out all over the place. Her glasses kind of look like they're just drawn rather than like actual glasses, which I find interesting. She has these earrings that are just like, I think it's a little pin. And then she has scissors as her bow tie. I like her jacket being made out of paper, and it has little sticky notes, and it has a little drawn on flower, and that she carries around this huge like stack of papers and gigantic, she has like a comically sized pen that she carries around for some reason. And then she has tights and her shoes. Oh my gosh, her shoes, they're heels. but they're shiny and they're a tape dispenser. I think that's so cool. My favorite thing about her design is she has this yellow pad dress that's kind of just like whatever to me, and then it has googly eyes on the side. I think that's such a fun, goofy detail. But yeah, I like her design a lot of being office supplies. And I like that her name's Penelope, which sounds normal, but it also has the word pen in it. And I think it's kind of funny. And I didn't realize that at first I'm like, why is her name like a normal human name? And that it just has pen in the name because it's Penelope. I mean, she refers to herself as specifically Penelope Office Supplies and not like, hi, I'm Penelope the Office Supplies. So I don't know. But yeah, the only reason I remember the thing about her name is because if you talk to Office Dorian and you ask about the people in there, you can make fun of her name about having the word pen in it, and Dorian actually gets offended on her behalf of like, oh, are you making fun of us because we have like punny names? Just I think it's funny that like the fact that out of all the characters with pun names, because some of them have like really specific pun names with stuff, where it's like a little too direct on the nose of what the object is supposed to be, like telly being a TV but also being a word for telly, or like Michelin's being a pun on the Michelin stars. I mean, a lot of the names I think are cool where if you say them they kind of vaguely sound like the object they're supposed to be, or the freaking fact that Jean-Lou's full name just literally translates to toilet is probably my personal favorite. So just having stuff like that, or like Teddy's being like short for like being a teddy bear, or freaking like Textbox-chan is named Textbox-chan, that's it, and she's UI. But anyway, the fact that out of all of the like punny names, Penelope is the one that you ask like, haha, that's kind of funny of being like an object name or whatever. I feel like there's other characters you could bully more for their names. But anyway, Dorian gets offended and he gives you the thing on his name. I thought his being Dorian was just supposed to be like some of the others where if you say it kind of has the word in there or something, or it sounds similar, like Dasha kind of being like desk in that sense. But no, Dorian's named after like, or like in the story of the game, I don't know for like the actual devs coming up with the names of like a specific type of column to reference being sturdy and strong or whatever. And then he says something like, oh yeah, but Penelope being pen is on purpose or like supposed to be funny or whatever. Anyway, that's one of my favorite Dorian conversations. But yeah, Penelope pen, Penelope office supplies. But yeah, her realized design, I don't really care for it actually. I think it's the yellow dress. I get it's supposed to be the notepad paper, but it just feels so bright to me. I do like that it's striped. I do like it's supposed to be like turning that notepad paper, like the bright yellow notepad paper, into a dress, but it's so bright. I don't really care for it. Like, she has the yellow dress in the non-realized outfit too, but then it's covered by that paper jacket and there's like other stuff going on. So it's not really as in your face. But yeah, I like that she has a shirt that has like a little ribbon on it, and then her shoes are just normal. Like the shoes and leggings are basically the same, and her accessories and her hair change. I like that instead of being a pencil holder as the ponytail holder, it's instead something that kind of looks like a big clip, but it has like little hearts on it. But it doesn't really look like a clip because it's covered by her hair, so it works, I guess. I like that even as a human she still wears like literal like paper clips in her hair. And it's interesting that her hair it doesn't actually change. Like, I was wondering about that because she has like red and blue, like maybe it's supposed to be dyed parts of her hair. I don't know what the heck it's supposed to be. and then when she's a human, she has the same red and blue, and it doesn't get turned into hair. So, like, her hair is exactly the same. And I find that really interesting, because with other characters, it's usually, like, I think of, like, Eddie's supposed to have, like, wires in his hair, even though it doesn't actually look like wires. I think that kind of upsets me just a little bit now that I'm thinking about it. It's supposed to be wires, and then when he becomes human, it just turns into, like, streaks in the hair. I thought it was supposed to be like that for Penelope, but her hair literally stays the same, so I don't know why the red and blue in there. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, the rest of her realized outfit is fine. I like the little pin that she wears. It's like a pin you would have in your shirt, and it's clippy. I think that's so cute. And then I think it's interesting that her notepad thing, or like she carries around a bunch of paper to use as a notepad, or like as something to write on, gets replaced with just like a little sticky note thing. I thought, because she's like formally office supplies, that it would just be like a regular notebook or something. Could have been like a notebook with a heart on it or whatever, because so many characters have like heart accessories. But anyway, yeah, I had opinions on her outfit. Penelope as a person, I'm trying to remember her route, sorry. I think she's really fun. She does kind of remind me of Jerry in a sense of being kind of like very awkward, kind of nerdy looking and stuff. She is so awkward. She's such a girl failure, but I love her anyway. I feel like the way to describe her personality is like describing her route and her interactions, because she doesn't really talk to you. It's her talking to other people, and you were also there, but it makes it fun. It's kind of like Gaia's, actually, of like you keep summoning other people and stuff, and then eventually at the end of the route you get a conversation with that person alone. But it ends up being really fun, and that's where a lot of her funny dialogue, Penelope's, comes from. It's basically that she wants to try dating, and she explains it at the end, where she was scared of being rejected and that she likes the player, and she didn't have the confidence to like go with what she wanted, so she kept dating all these self-described weirdos. But her dates are cool. The first one, I think there's like 5 or 6 dates off the top of my head. The first one I think is with Kristoff, and he ends up being too intense for her, so then she goes for Shelly, because I think physically her type is like really buff people and stuff, or like people that are really confident. She goes for Shelly. Okay, the thing with Kristoff with hers is he's like very intense, and he tells her that she's like weak or something, because he wants someone that can keep up with the violence / exercise. And with Shelly's, I thought Penelope and Shelly would go pretty well, because they're both kind of awkward. Shelly is like someone that's very anxious and stuff, but is actually really nice and just wants someone to be herself around. And then Penelope is like very awkward but very like nice as well, and I feel like they could actually work as a couple if it wasn't like a route that was being like played for laughs and having the jokes go wrong on purpose, or not the jokes, the dates. But Penelope goes out to dinner with all these people, actually, which I find interesting. Like, where are they going to dinner to? But she mentions that Shelly cried the entire date and was like really anxious about things going wrong. And then her next date is with Chance, and Chance doesn't even realize it's a date at first, and Penelope says really sadly like, oh, you don't want to go on a date with me? And Chance is like, oh my gosh, no, I want to go on a date with you and stuff. And then the thing that Penelope says goes wrong is that Chance kept rolling the D20 the entire date, as if it was like playing a G&G campaign of rolling it between the numbers to figure out what to do. And he did that for the entire date. And that's why I find it really funny that he judges Parker later on about like, you're deciding your whole date on like a dice roll, or like your relationship stats, which I know is like a way bigger and more complicated, crazy thing. And I do like that with the player, you do the campaign with Chance, which is like a more natural way of like romancing him or getting a relationship. It makes sense, but like the fact that he went on a date with Penelope and he did like Parker Dice bullshit is really funny to me. So that doesn't work out, and then she goes on a no, she doesn't get to go on a date with Skylar. It kind of pisses me off. It's like, I get that people have preferences and it's supposed to be a joke about glasses or whatever, and that's fine. I'm not getting mad at Skylar for having preferences. I'm getting mad at the way she treated Penelope. That it's the one time that Skylar is involved in someone's storyline that doesn't have to do with anything that's like a game mechanic, like content awareness or realization. She's just in the story, and it's that okay, the thing is, she doesn't like girls with glasses is the thing. The fact that she did agree to go on the date with Penelope, even though she doesn't like girls with glasses, and she was thinking about it as she was getting ready for the date, and then shows up to the date and says she doesn't like girls with glasses and leaves. Just the way she handles it is like very immature. It's supposed to be like funny or whatever, but it ends up like hurting Penelope, and I just feel bad for her. And like, Skylar is usually like she can be empathetic towards people and stuff, and she's usually like a very bright and cheery person and like friendly, so the fact that she reacted like so immaturely about this just bothers me. Where she agrees to go on the date, and she does mention like, oh, Penelope, I'm glad that you're trying out dating, and you did ask me and I did say yes, and then she is there and then says that she doesn't like girls with glasses, and you can ask like, oh, but I have glasses. And the fact that she says, yeah, but I was able to overcome it with you, it doesn't feel fair, because that implies like she decided to give us a chance and then fell in love with us despite the glasses preference thing. But it's like, you could give Penelope a chance too and get to know her. I've heard of people that prefer people with glasses. I've never heard of someone that prefers someone without glasses. I feel like that's like a really specific thing. I get it's supposed to be the joke of like, Skylar is literally a pair of glasses, and you can point that out where you're like, but your glasses, and Skylar's like, it isn't. She like makes fun of you for it, of like, oh, you wouldn't get it. I mean, you don't date humans or something. And you can kind of argue with her a little bit on it, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, maybe from a glasses perspective it makes sense, I don't know, rather than just maybe it's like I have to get into the object mindset here of like, maybe, I don't know if Penelope's glasses are sentient, but maybe it's like Skylar is a pair of glasses, so she judges other glasses. I don't know. I mean, but then it's funny because Skylar is also a girl that in the objects form, whatever, where she like looks like a person, you know, she wears glasses. She literally is described as having her own date viators by the narrator. So I don't know. I do think that's cute though, that she has her own pair. Like, she's glasses, but she wears glasses. Yeah, and then she ends up having a date with Sinclair, which I was bummed, just because I wanted to see what the actual date was, but it's during that conversation. Like, Sinclair for her is the bottom of the barrel, and specifically the Sinclair pre you helping him through his issues, so I completely get it. His dialogue is so funny though during that, where it's something of like, he shouts like, choo choo, here comes lovin', but the way the lines are delivered sounds like the voice actor's having an absolute fucking blast with it. And I wanted to see what the date was like, because it sounds like it would have been really wacky, but literally what happens is they like hook arms or something, and Penelope's like, wait, no, and then she's talking to the player, and the narrator says that Sinclair walks off while still having his arm out, thinking that he's with Penelope, and then it turns into Penelope confessing to the player. It does make me wonder if you finish Sinclair's route and you get him mentally back to normal and then do Penelope's route, is the dialogue maybe changed? Is it like how it's Wallace, where if you get him to talk and you do like someone else's route, like Hirohime's or whatever, and then he actually just full on speaks, or it's more like you can understand what he's saying, which is so weird to me too, of like everyone else can understand what he's saying except for the player. I find that really interesting. But yeah, Penelope's route is like very comedic and stuff, and I like her little motivational quotes that she uses to try to pep herself up, and that they're all based on like real people but with like furniture names, and how she has a magazine she takes advice from that's called something like Office Romance Weekly or whatever, and it has a picture of two staplers kissing on the front of it or something. And then I like her confession where she says of like, I was dating all these weirdos and whatever, and you had to watch me date all these people, because you can keep telling her throughout her route that like, oh, why don't you stop dating this person, date me instead. And the sad thing is that she thinks that you're joking the whole time, and she's like, haha, what a hilarious joke or whatever. And you can tell her that you think the dates are going to go badly or whatever, and it doesn't really matter. And that's kind of about it. So it's like you do kind of get to talk to her, but it's more about her interaction with other people, kind of like Gaia's. But it makes it a fun route anyway, and I like the choices of people that she gets to date, and she slowly gets more desperate. I like how with Skylar she says like, I landed a total babe, and then Skylar shows up. And I find that kind of funny. But yeah, it's a fun route. She's a fun character. Is it my favorite? I don't know, because some of Parker's lines are really fucking funny. Or one of my favorite lines is when she's with Kristoff and you tell her before the date, like, oh, matches energy, and he says something about fighting, and she says like, yeah, let's fucking fight or whatever. And the thing that makes this game, it already has like great writing and great jokes and stuff, but the thing that makes the jokes really works and absolutely sells them a lot of the time is the voice delivery. Can sometimes just be perfect for something that's already a funny line, and it ends up just being comedic gold. Like a lot of the ones that people talk about is like some of Parker's lines or Stella's of the oh no, I'm racist. But the one that I hear a lot from people is when you're doing Bodhi's route, who I still need to talk about at some point, and he's trying to talk about LGBT, and he's like, yeah, the people with the letters, and it's during like a serious conversation. He makes it this or it's not supposed to be a joke in his part, the people with the letters, and he pronounces it as, he gets the letters wrong, he just remembers it starts with L, and he pronounces it like Legibidiqua or something, which I didn't really laugh at, but it's apparently something people find really funny. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, Penelope's really fun. I like that her realization stuff where she, as a human, you can ask her for like her romance dialogue in any ways like funny, where she's just like, oh hey lover, and she's like, oh my gosh, that sounds so much better in my head or whatever, and she gives you finger guns, and the narrator's like, someday you'll help her realize that romance doesn't have to be this awkward. And it's, you get like the payoff of that when she becomes a human. You can ask for sexy times, and I like that when she says, she's like, oh gosh, I'm even more awkward as a human. I think her awkwardness makes her kind of cute. But anyway, you agree to sexy times or whatever, and she gives you this apparently devilish look in her eyes, or devious look in her eyes or something, the narrator says, that is very un-Penelope-like, and then her voice gets like a little more flirty, and she gets suddenly super confident and uses one of her quotes as a pickup line and says something like, oh, I want you to wait, let me open it. I actually wrote it down in my computer notes. I think, let me see, Penelope. Oh no, I didn't. I wrote it down somewhere, but that's okay. Where she says something like, oh, I want you to do it to me, and then the next line is the it being sex, but the way she says sex, she like she like the S, it's like kind of longer, and so she has like Riz out of nowhere, and then immediately she's just like, quickly before I lose my newfound human confidence or whatever. It's kind of funny. And then I like that she has unique dialogue, and I get it because she's office supplies with the cork board that has everyone's name photos on it, and she's one of the ones I realized lasts on purpose because of that, where you get a collectible from it too, like if you talk to her with it, where she says, hey, these photos started just appearing on the board, and you get a instant film collectible thing, which I find interesting. I don't know if the photos are like magic. I'm still confused if we're the ones that put them up or other people based on the descriptions. I love the descriptions for the Polaroids, by the way, with how Penelope says they just get put up like out of nowhere. And I know Skylar puts up hers because she says, hey, let me add one more before I leave, and then your board is finished. Except my board's not finished because there's 2 empty slots on it permanently, even though I don't have the DLC, which makes me a little sad. It makes the board look a little empty. But yeah, some of the time it seems like people send you the photos, and for some of the descriptions it's that you were in the process of taking the photos. Like with Eddie and Volt, it says something about like Eddie not being able to sit still because he's fixing the lighting, and you get a photo of him while he's in between fixing the lighting, which is funny because he's like perfectly posed or whatever. But Penelope's board dialogue with the Polaroids happens like every like 20 or something, and it's I thought she was going to be a little sad about it or jealous, but she's like, hey, you're doing a great job, you have like 90 photos or whatever. And I think you can tell her at some point you'll do her as well. It's probably reflective of her, for her too, of like having all your friends on there. And I'm a little sad that Penelope doesn't put, I think it's interesting, there's like 3 photos that don't actually end up on the board, and I think the placement of them is interesting. Damon's ends up being in the, I don't know what the name of the closet is. It's the one where Winifred and the crawl space is, that little room in the office. I don't know what it's called, but there's a shelf in there, and Damon's picture ends up getting taped on it, but it's taped where it's hanging sideways, and the photo is actually partially destroyed because he's a glitch. On one hand, I'm like, oh, I want him to be on the board, but it makes sense because he's like a glitch character. She's not supposed to be there, that their photo is in a completely different location, that's just kind of in the closet, like it's not supposed to be there. And then Keith's is in the trash. I'm assuming I like to think that the player threw it there specifically. Like you realized Keith, you somehow got a photo of him before he immediately left your house and then died, and then threw the photo in the trash. I'm surprised it wasn't like crumpled or anything. And then the dialogue says like where he belongs, and then Penelope's, it was driving me nuts, I couldn't find it at first. She taped it onto the desk. She put, it says that she put a sticky note there, and then there's the photo, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I love that she has unique dialogue for, I love when there's unique dialogue for specific situations, like Dorian's dialogue about Keith, or Penelope's about the board or whatever. There's probably more that I'm missing. Anyway, yeah, Penelope's one of my favorites. I would have probably realized her last anyway because I didn't want her to leave the house. I liked her too much. But she has a fun character design and a fun route, and she's a really funny character. I also, maybe it's the way she talks, I don't know, or maybe it is her appearance or like her face or something. She kind of reminds me of Elaine from Seinfeld. I don't know if that's on purpose or if they just have like a similar vibe. I was kind of find it funny with this game where like if the character reminds me or kind of looks like an actual person. But yeah, Penelope's one of my favorites. Next we have Mac. Okay, Mac, I have some thoughts. I'm complicated about Mac, if I'm honest. Let's talk about the design first, because it's it's a design I really like. I think it's interesting that Mac is in a wheelchair. I'm wondering if it's like objects wise, if it's because Mac is a computer. I'm assuming specifically a desktop computer, so you wouldn't really be, it's like kind of fragile and you wouldn't be able to move it by yourself. It would be something, you know, because it has to be plugged in, whatever, that would probably only be on your desk and stuff. I don't know. I think the wheelchair looks so freaking cool. I love how colorful the wheels are, and the part where your legs are supposed to go. I'm sorry, I don't know what like parts of wheelchairs are supposed to be, but the part with the wheels are a power button, and the part that your legs go on is like a keyboard, and it glows white, and then the part where you rest your back on is supposed to be like a computer screen, which is, I was actually surprised that there wasn't a computer screen like fashion part of Mac's outfit or anything. I thought that would have been like a shirt or something, and then the handles for it are like a USB. I think that's really cool. I think it's such a cool thing to have in the way they designed it. And I like that Mac, being a computer, has screens around them at all times, like digital screens, and when they're talking to you, they have their own like virtual keyboard. It makes me think of like Vocaloid and stuff, but I think that's really cool because it's like, it's your computer, and they have to be able to do their job when they're like still you know, talking to you. So the fact that they get their own keyboard and their own little computer in a sense, and that they have all these screens around them all the time, is really cool. I like the RGB, is that was called, the colors and stuff, that Mac's design is really colorful, of like the two fans being on the shirt and stuff. I think that's creative. It's like the innards thing. I don't like the way they look of just like these I get they're supposed to be fans of like these two giant circles. I like the black and green though. I love the jacket. I love that the jacket is supposed to be a keyboard, but I really like that the keyboard isn't labeled with anything. It's just kind of like slightly implied through the different colors on there. You can tell it's supposed to be a keyboard. I think the tattoos are really cool, of one of them being like code. I really like the one that's like the 0 and 1s, and it kind of makes me think of the Matrix. Now it's like different colors of green, and then there's like a motherboard or something as like a full-on like sleeve tattoo. And the glasses are cool. I like that Mac does kind of look like a nerd for being a computer. And then I think they're one of those that also has like a unique art style for the face and stuff. I really like the way they're drawn, and that the eyes kind of permanently look a little bit tired. I love the enamel of the computer mouse being a mouse. Like, that's the most predictable shit ever, but it looks really cool, and I like that it gets turned into an actual mouse once Mac is realized, and its tail is like a little USB thing. If there's a computer that would have had, a character that would have had like wires for a tail or something, I would have expected it to be the computer. I'm actually surprised there isn't more wires on Mac like there are for Telly and Connie, especially because like at the computer you have to have it like plugged in with so many things. It feels a little disappointing that like the two that Mac does have is whatever part of your actual computer where you can plug in like your headphones and stuff. I don't remember the audio jack or whatever. That does have stuff that's like connected, and the mouse has like a little USB thing, but that's about it. There isn't, I don't know, when I think of computers, like if I look inside of my computer, there's all of these like really colorful wires and stuff, and I feel like that would have been really cool to like have as part of the design. That could have been a fun element, but like whatever, they focus more on like the actual parts of like the computer itself, and then the keyboard and the mouse and the USB stuff. And in that sense, I think it's cool, and that the monitor screen is like part of the wheelchair and stuff, but then it's also made up of the fact that they have screens around them, like virtual screens. I really like the boots. I like that the boots have like a USB thing, and this is like one of the only characters where I think I actually noticed their shoes more, because Mac is able to move their legs a little bit. Like there's some sprites where one foot's crossed over the other, and then you're able to see the shoes a little bit. But I think it's a really cool outfit. I love that it's mostly black, but then it has the colors that match with like the computer stuff. I mean, my stuff with my computer isn't colorful. Mine is all like red, which would not have been my first choice, but that's because someone built my computer for me actually. But I think Mac's design is really cool, and then the realized design. Oh, okay. I didn't know the wheelchair got changed. Actually, apparently there's like an older version of it, or like used in an older version of the game. I'm assuming it doesn't look like a cut content thing, where it's actually bigger and it has like places for your arms, and the wheel is turned into like a loading wheel, and it just has more parts to it. I think that's really interesting. I wonder why it got changed. I wonder if it was to make the wheelchair more like maybe accurate to wheelchair users. I don't know. This is the only character where I'm seeing in their images where a part of their design specifically got like changed or something. Anyway, Mac's realized design, I'm okay with it. It's not really anything. It just looks like normal clothes. Like they wear a shirt that has a giant power button on it, which is kind of whatever. I like their vest jacket thing. I think it looks cool as like a fashion item. I mean, it does have some of the computer elements still. It has like a floppy disk image and a loading disk thing. I think maybe it works because it's all like very subtle, but it's just not exciting to me. It just kind of looks like regular clothes. I feel a little disappointed personally. I do like that their glasses stay exactly the same. I love their little silly mouse companion. They just have normal pants and like kind of normal shoes. It's just like a black outfit with like some subtle computer things, but like not enough for me that I'm like satisfied. I feel like it's a disappointing design. I do like the ring that is a the little computer mouse thing. Why am I forgetting what the pointer is called? And I do like at least that the wheelchair stays exactly the same, so that's actually the thing that has more computer references. But yeah, Mac is one of two characters that I actually felt more negative about between playthroughs. Like Mac's it's really funny. It's Mac and Bobby specifically, so I'll still talk about Bobby on their own, but I kind of have similar. I went through a similar kind of feelings with both of these characters, actually. Okay, when I played the demo, I fell in love with both of these characters immediately. I think it's just because I thought Bobby was really hot, and I still do, and is still the most gender envy character for me in the entire game. And them being like this really confident, kind of funny character, but they're not trying to be funny. And then with Mac, I think it was just, I thought their design was really cool, and I was kind of surprised by them because I thought I saw that it was kind of like Celia, where I judged them on appearance immediately based on like their facial expressions or something. Like how I thought Celia was like gonna be a bitch, and then she was actually really nice and cared about everyone in the house. And with Mac, I saw it was like a very like stereotypically like nerdy look, with like the glasses and everything. And I think some of their portraits, I think it was they're introduced with the one where they're wearing their glasses and they're like kind of focused on something, and I just thought, oh, is this character probably also, I thought because it's a computer personification, is this going to be a character that's like very emotionally cold? I wasn't thinking like robotic or anything, but just like maybe they'd be kind of cold and not easy to talk to. And I thought that maybe they were going to be, I was thinking like the personification of, I don't know what the emoji is called, but it's the one with the glasses and the little finger. The one that everyone always uses is basically like, actually, I thought it was going to be either like something like that. I was expecting like a very emotionally cold character that was going to be like really nerdy and smart and annoying, and I was worried about that. And then you start talking to Mac, and they're actually like also someone that's really I'm gonna pause for a second. Hold on. Okay, shoot, I forgot what I was saying. Sorry. Today was a Nintendo Direct, and they revealed this Kirby Air Riders amiibo where you could swap the machine that Kirby rides on. I was telling my friend it'd be so cool if it was like an actual like toy that was like a collectible thing, and you could like have a set of air ride machines that you swap Kirby on. Okay, I was talking about Mac. Right, that I liked. We talked about the design. That I liked Mac in the demo immediately. Oh yeah, I was saying that I thought Mac was gonna be really cold and be annoying and whatever, and then they're not, and it's cool. I like even what the narrator says. I'm trying to get my thoughts in order. I'm sorry. What the narrator says when you meet Mac, I sort of vaguely remember of like this person greeting you with a warm smile, and I noticed that when Mac would show up in other things, like when you summon Mac to help you with the key stuff, it says that they give you a smile and they give you a little wave, like it's someone that does try to be friendly and stuff. I love I'm gonna try to start with the positives of things first. Anyway, I really liked, and this is just for me speaking with the demo and stuff, and and the first playthrough compared to like the second playthrough, and when I thought more about the characters and stuff. I don't think I had an opinion on the route itself. I remember I was excited for the upgrade that Mac had that was hyped throughout the whole route, and then visually it wasn't a change like at all. And I did think it was kind of sad that they were saying they were excited about the update. I get it of wanting to be your best possible self, but it was like, finally I'm going to be good enough for you, and I thought that was kind of sad. And yeah, that was it. I remember Mac was one of my favorites originally, and then I thought more about the route and some of the stuff with the character, and then I was thinking about it as I was doing my second playthrough, and I realized there was things I just really didn't like about the character and the route. I'll start with the positives first, just overall of things I like. The design, that they are actually friendlier than I expected. I really like Mac's first conversation when you realize them, or not when you realize them, when you awaken them or whatever, and they talk about like with interfacing. I noticed they use a lot of computer terms to describe like human stuff, which at first I thought that was weird, and I'm like, oh yeah, you're literally a computer. But they kind of keep that quirk even when they are human, like when they get realized, of like referring to their CPU to refer to like their brain or their heart and stuff, but for like phrases where you would say like your brain feeling overloaded or your heart feeling really excited. But I get what they're trying to say, and it made the sentiment sort of nice. I thought it was like an interesting like speaking quirk. And anyway, with the interfacing, when they just mean like, oh, we're talking and stuff, how they had so many needs, and then they finally get to express those needs. But I mean, that happens throughout the whole game with everyone, where a lot of them have not just like emotional needs or like a problem or like a social problem or whatever thing, where a lot of them as like physical objects, something is wrong and you have to help them with things like Mac needing to upgrade, or that is literally like the entirety of Eddie's route is being is like having the broken wire and not working properly and stuff, or like Shelly being not mounted properly, but that's one that you're not allowed to fix, and it still really bothers me, of just stuff like that, which I think that's really cool. Like for us, it's like, yeah, you get to interact with the objects and you get to date people and yippee, but from the object perspective, it's probably so nice where, you know, something's broken and maybe you don't even know that it's broken, or you walk past it and it's just like whatever. Now that they're an object, a person, they can be like, hey, something is wrong with me, you have to help, and get the help that they need, because, you know, they can't do it themselves, they're like an inanimate object or whatever. So that's gotta be cool. But I like the way that Mac talks about it, of like we finally get to talk face to face even though we're around each other all the time. Like the concept of like as an object, you're on your computer. I thought it was funny and sad the characters described as being on their computer 11 hours a day. Like Mac as an object seems canonically like the one that you're around the most in like the object form. And it's like, yeah, you're using your computer, and as an object they're like technically interacting with you and whatever, but it's not like they're showing signs of like sentience during that time, I'm assuming. It's something I think about with the game of like when you're not wearing the glasses, can the objects still interact with you? Like with the animations, it's like obviously no, because they can only shake, they don't like talk to you or do little things or whatever. But I do think it is kind of fun of like I see in like fan fictions and stuff where like even if the player isn't wearing the glasses of like the objects still are able to move around and stuff. I think it's kind of cool, almost like they're like haunted or whatever, even if they can't talk. Anyway, but Mac describing of like we're around each other a lot, but then when you awaken them and whenever you wear the glasses, it's like they can finally talk like face to face, and just how excited they are about it I think is really cute. I think they're the only one that mentions about that, or there might be a couple others that are just like when you first awaken them of like, wow, I actually get to like talk to you, and that's really like a cool and amazing thing. And it is, because it's like you have the only pair of deviators on planet Earth and stuff, and being able to talk to you're the only one besides, I think Franklin mentioned about a piece of furniture that he had a soft spot for, but you're one of the only people that gets to do this pre-Skylar realized making the datables, the date viators or whatever, and that's really cool. And I think that was part of the reason I liked Mac, if they were genuinely just so excited to talk to us and stuff. I liked the conversations about the fanfic, though Mac does judge us in that about having 100 lovers is impossible, and I like and I hate that dialogue in that the first time you like as you're playing through the game, it's funny and you're like, haha, no, but that's the whole point of the game. And then once you realize you realize they're right in that. I mean, the characters do visit you all the time, you're not being abandoned or anything, they're still a prominent part of your life, mostly if you romance them. If you friend them, I notice some of them don't come to see you or anything, which I think kind of sucks. But yeah, they're still part of your life, but it's not to the degree as it was in the game where, they can't move and you can literally they're in your house, you can talk to them every day and be romantic, and they're there and it's awesome and you get to hang out or whatever. And then once they move out, it's like, it's just you in your house, and it's not like the kind of romantic relationship, even though you're both human, with characters where they get to live with you, actually, except for Mac, who does live with you, which I think is kind of cool. And I remember I was excited about that. I think my opinion of Mac actually changed, like, I think after I did their route and as I was doing the first playthrough and I was thinking about stuff and whatever. So if it hadn't, I would have been absolutely hyped of like, I won the game, one of my favorite characters gets to canonically live with me and did not leave me. But then I was just like, oh, okay, by the end. But I still think that's cool. At least someone stays with you. That's nice. What else? Because it mentions about that you roll over in bed and Mac is there and stuff. What else? Yeah, I liked the conversation about New Jersey, even though I don't really know anything about New Jersey. And yeah, when you chat about the fanfic and just I like the idea, and I'm just kind of like, phew, of, with your computer, besides having like your passwords and you do bank stuff in there and whatever you do on your computer, just the whole concept of it is probably terrifying to be someone's computer, of like any internet search history you make and whatever, even if you're probably in some kind of incognito mode and stuff, it's like your computer as a sentient being has to know about it because you're using them to do it. Like Mac describes about using the keyboard to type up that fan fiction, and they mentioned something about like, you saved it into my hard drive, like it's literally saved into my brain, I can't not know about it. And like the things you do, they sort of seem to know, or maybe it's up to them if they want to pay attention to what you're doing, because there is that dialogue about you buying underwear and Max saying it probably looks nice on you, like you picked a good option. And then you could say like, you know about that, and Max says something about sneaking a peek, but also saying something about like, I would never intentionally invade your privacy. So I'm assuming they at least give you some privacy of like being a computer and using the computer. I do appreciate that, but the fact that they don't judge you about the fan fiction, I think is really nice. I mean, writing a self-insert fanfic about having a harem of 100 lovers is not the craziest thing out there, I'm assuming, but you know, it's not something you'd probably share with your family or whatever, depending. And knowing how the player is and some of the options you can pick, I'm assuming it was something that was probably raunchy, but I don't know. I just assume the player is at least somewhat horny, because you do have books in your house about dating furniture even before you meet any of the furniture or write anything with lyrics, so I don't know. You could all, I mean, you do have the option, of course, of hating everyone and just becoming their friend or whatever, so yeah, I don't know. Or just based on like dialogue options, that's what I assumed about the MC. Anyway, but yeah, the fact that Mac doesn't judge you, I like, because, you know, people do all kinds of things on a computer, and I think it's nice that like, even if you do something silly or whatever, that your computer as a sentient person decides not to judge you for it and is fine with it, and is even fine with you doing those things. Or like when you get the romance thing, Max says like, maybe we can write fan fiction together and stuff. So yeah, there is some things about Mac I like. I don't like the route itself, and Mac, not someone I need a content warning for, but I almost wish there was like a little one or something. Mac is surprisingly like way more sexual than some of the other characters I would have expected. They get like horny easily, and it's in a way that I don't really find funny and I don't really like. I heard that if you reject their advances and you don't go along with it, they end up hating you for it, which I don't really care for. It's not like, there's other characters that are like kind of horny and whatever, and sometimes I'm fine with it, sometimes I'm not. With Mac, it's like the fact that it comes up so often and it comes out of like nowhere as well. Like you could be talking about normal stuff and they keep making like innuendos about things, and it feels like it's a bit too much. They're too excited about you in that way that I don't really care for it. It's specifically the double clicking. That's the thing that bothers me. Like at first I'm like, okay, I guess it's like a funny, it's supposed to be like a joke or something about like your double clicking gets them excited or whatever. I guess probably because you have to put more pressure on the mouse rather than just like a normal click. You do like 2 clicks, and normally when people double click, it's like they do it like one after the other, like you know, I'm assuming the mic caught that. So, and you probably have to put more pressure into it, so maybe it's something that gets them sexually excited, like whatever. But the fact that it keeps showing up, and I freaking hate the collectible that shows up with it when they talk about double clicking, where it's a picture of a computer mouse and it has that like really horny face in it. I didn't like it. Or they talk about the way they get excited about how you like order your files and whatever. It's just like a bit too much and too just kind of like horny out of nowhere. I don't really care for it. I don't really like their route either, because their whole route is supposed to be about upgrading them, and they're really excited about it, and you upgrade them and there isn't really any changes. But you know, as a computer, it's probably a good thing for them, of like you make them run better and whatever. So I'm like, okay, it's fine, you did this thing they wanted. And then they immediately ask you, after they constantly freaking pester you about doing the upgrade. That is the whole route, by the way, pretty much, of just you do this upgrade for them, and that's pretty much the whole storyline. They ask to see other people. I don't know in terms of like the game itself, like if you have to actually not talk to them and go talk to other characters and get like a certain amount of romance endings or something and then go back or whatever. I think I went back the next day and it was completely fine. It was implied like time had passed, and then it's supposed to be turned into something romantic where Max says like, oh, I was with other people but I couldn't stop thinking about you. I get where they're coming from with it, of like, oh, in order to have like a better relationship, we have to kind of learn to see what we want with a partner, and it's probably good if we spend some time apart. Like, I'm fine, like, if you take a break in your romantic relationship, and I get the point of, like, trying to learn what your romantic taste is, of seeing other people. I get that they sort of have good intentions. I just don't like it where it's like they constantly pester you for a favor, and as soon as you do it, they leave you or they tell you to leave. It's like really weird timing, and it doesn't really feel like anything earned, because it happens in your second conversation, and your final conversation is they're like, oh, I was wrong, let's be together and whatever. It just feels weird and unnecessary. If it was something that was like at the beginning of their route, or maybe like the middle of their route, maybe there's like some conflict or whatever, and they ask to see other people briefly or something, and then some actual time passes or whatever, and then you have the conversation. If it was just done a different way, maybe it could have worked, but I feel like it wasn't really necessary for their route. I feel like it would have just been fine if it was like you do the upgrade for them, and then it's like you get to pick an ending from there or whatever. Or maybe it's like if you hate how they are with the upgrade, maybe it would lead to a hate ending or something. I don't know. I don't know what their hate ending is exactly. I'm assuming it's like if you decide not to upgrade them, kind of like with Dishy, you would just get a hate ending. But yeah, I thought that was weird. I don't really think the route is very fun. It's just like you give them this upgrade, they ask you to leave, and then they like you or whatever, and you get to pick an ending. It isn't really much of anything. The only times I actually did like the route is the conversations you have in the same day before you start talking about the upgrades again. We're just like casually chatting about stuff, and that was kind of fun. And I don't like the realization thing too, where Mac is so excited about their new job and then it turns out to be crypto. I feel like that's kind of weird. The way the narrator frames it, of like, oh, they could finally put their skills of being a PC to use. I feel like there's so many other things you could do. Like, I expected Mac to go like into IT, or it could have been something that still has to do with computers, but just the fact that it's crypto, I don't really like that. Feels kind of weird for their character. I do kind of like the art though. I find it funny where it's a shot of you looking down at Mac, and they're sitting in a dark room with like the scary anime glasses or something, and their little rat is on their desk. That part of it's kind of cute. But yeah, I don't know. There's like a lot of things I didn't really like with Mac. I don't hate Mac or anything. It's something I mentioned at like the start of this review, or why I did a second playthrough, is like my feelings for characters changed. Where there was a lot that I learned during the playthrough that I did fall in love with, or I did get to like more, or whatever, or ones that I specifically got to know that I didn't give a chance in my first playthrough because I didn't do the route or whatever. But I had opinions after my first playthrough and before the second one already that were specifically, or like during the first one, or during the first playthrough, of like, I was friend zoned by Mitchell and Timothy, and I was sad because I fell in love with both of them during the storyline and had my opinions about them changed. And then Bobby and Mac were the two where I was in love with them in the demo, like immediately for whatever reason, and I was very, very excited to date them in the first playthrough. And then I did the storyline and it was whatever, and then I realized there was things about the characters that I didn't like, and I realized I kind of like fell out of love with them in a sense, for a variety of reasons. With the Mac, it's like the route, and it's also things with their personality. It's like the horniness thing, where with both these characters, I'm like, yeah, I'd rather just be friends and it would be fine, where I still like them enough where I feel like I could be friends, but that was about it. Okay, yeah, so that's Mac things. So you'll hear me talk about that. I'll touch on some of these points again when I get to talk about Bobby, whenever they show up in this. Whenever they show up in, okay, Bobby's 79, so that's like for a while, but you'll hear me talk about some of this again. Okay, so next is Willie, who's your work. I think Willie's like the one character I have never heard anyone on the internet talk about or make fan art of. Like, there's a lot of characters that are like that, but or even in like memes or anything, I've never seen a single thing on Willie, and it kind of makes me feel bad for her. I have mixed feelings on her too. I I don't know, I think her storyline is interesting and I really like her design. I don't like the idea of like dating your work. I feel like personally it would probably stress me out, but it also feels weird for me. And it's like the timing of my life where I'm doing her route too, where it's just kind of like it's like a weird spot for me where I mentioned at some point I kind of relate to this game, or like the protagonist's shoes at this point of my life, specifically the time of the year and what was happening in my life when I played this game and did my first playthrough. So I feel like I related to this game and I got way more into it, a little more than maybe I should have, than I normally would have, besides the fact that it is, you know, my cup of tea of being like a quirky dating sim, or the fact that I had the summer free and stuff, and this was like my summer game I was playing a lot, in that I'm like I'll describe it for you, and it'll make more sense with the stuff with Willy, of like literally I graduated college this year in May, and it was really weird for me where it was, I'm gonna go in a bit of a spiel here of like I finished and it was supposed to be like a celebratory thing, and I was getting burned out from school anyway, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm done. And everyone was like, yay, you're done, congratulations. And a lot of family and people were like, you get to go on with the next chapter of your life and go on into your career job, cool. And then it's been really weird for me where I haven't been able to get a job, and I've been trying, and it's kind of I'm at like a weird emotional point where it's like I'm not being able to find a job. All the jobs are about like you need like 5 years of experience already, and it's like I just fucking graduated college, what do you want me to do? And it's been kind of tough, and at first I was getting frustrated and I tried not to stress, and I'm like, okay, if I just keep trying and it's fine. And it's kind of weird where it's like I'm living at my folks and they're thankfully really nice about it and stuff, and they're like, just try to find a job, it's okay, because I live somewhere where it's like really expensive to move out by yourself. You like can't do it unless you have someone to live with you and stuff. It's tough. Things are tough with those aspects. I myself, I'm fine. Thankfully, I'm able to stay with my folks, and it's fine. But it's really weird for me right now where it's like, and with this character and with this game where I'm unemployed, I have more free time than the rest of my friends, so I'm not really getting to like I leave the house, I do things, sometimes I see my friends, sometimes I go out with my parents, like I'm not like a shut-in or anything, but I'm mostly at home, and you know, I'm unemployed, I'm trying to find a job, but it's also kind of chill for me where I'm using my free time where I'm like painting and I'm also doing fun things and playing this game and whatever. So I feel like I'm very much in this character's shoes, and also related to Willy's route where, like, you know, the player character is also unemployed, where they're in a different situation where they're like fired from their job, and they, you know, you spend the entire game inside of your house and the game can go on forever and stuff, except, you know, the difference being that the player character gets a bunch of magic glasses and you get to date your furniture. And I mean, with the player character, it's like you get to like improve your stats and gain a personality and make friends, and it's about the magic of social connections. And I guess for me, I'm not having that because I already have friends, and I don't have people to interact with right now because I can't talk to any of my friends except through like Discord. So in that sense, the stuff with Sam also kind of hit hard. That's kind of my way, where the only way I can like communicate with my friends right now for the most part. And I wish I had magic glasses where I can date the furniture, but I feel like I was doing that in the magic of connections through playing this game. Like I was living through the player character through that. So it's been interesting for me. This game as a whole hit hard, but Willy's route also hit hard in that it's about a character, like Willy literally being your job. Like I don't know how the player character feels about losing their job. I feel like through the conversations with Sam, it doesn't really feel like too big of a deal, and you know, you're dating your furniture and whatever. The furniture, except for Willy, doesn't really talk about it that much, or they're more focused on like, you haven't gone outside, you need to go touch grass and stuff, or at least Gwendolyn is. But with Willy, it's the perspective of someone who, you know, they're fired from their job, and Willy's mad at the player about how she was replaced with AI. At first I was confused about that because I didn't realize that Willy was the personification of your work. I didn't really know what Willy was the personification of. I was confused about that, but is literally I thought she was the personification of Valdivian at first, and I was really confused because she literally has the Valdivian logo as part of her outfit. But no, she's specifically supposed to be your job. So of course she's mad about how she was replaced with AI, and her route is a little bit about that, about like the role of AI and work. And I think it's some interesting commentary, but it's also about how she doesn't have a job and she's desperately trying to get one through doing all these interviews with people and trying to do stuff. It's more of like through like companies and stuff, and she's desperately trying to find something. And then her route is about like you eventually get her to not stress as much and to take a break. You have a spa day together, and then from there she becomes a bit nicer. And I do like that those lessons stick with her towards the end, where she ends up getting a job with Valdivian, but she ends up getting a remote job where she's able to go on all these relaxing vacations and still do her job. So it's about the importance of like work-life balance. Don't have your work become your life, sort of a way, which I think it's interesting. But yeah, because of that, even though that's not her route and her position is not exactly what I'm going through, because I'm someone that's trying to get into a field and she's someone that's trying to keep her job in a sense and having these like more of these like upper management positions and stuff, it was still something I really related to. So I liked her route because of that. And also just as a route, I thought it was interesting. Not like it was fun, but I thought it was interesting, and it kind of reminded me of how I felt with Keys of like hold on, sorry, my friend is messaging me about Skylanders really quick. Oh, Toy Tub Life phase during like the Wii and the Wii U. Let me just pause really quick. Sorry. Okay, sorry. I was I was talking about Amiibo, and then my friend was talking about Skylanders, and then it made me think about the Toys to Life craze, and I started talking about how cool Lego Dimensions is, even though I can never play it because it requires the little figurines and it kills me. Okay, Willy, but yeah, that's the stuff with the route. Let me pull up her picture. Why did I didn't close the tab. Willy, I like that she looks like Grace Jones, especially with the haircut and stuff. I think that's really cool. I think it's funny her full name is, but I get what the pun is of Wilhelmina. I've never met someone with the name Wilhelmina before. Wilhelmina Work, and she goes by Willy. Like, Willy doesn't really seem like it's an object thing, besides her last name being Work, but I like their full name is sort of a question of Wilhelmina Work, which Wilhelmina makes it sound like will I work. I think that's interesting because that is the like entire thing with her character. She kind of reminds me of Keys in a sense, where it's like you meet this character and it's someone who's very kind of uptight and focused around their personification and stuff, and then you kind of defrost them a bit and they eventually end up being a lot nicer and stuff, and you get them to kind of not stress as much. I actually like her outfit. I think it's cool. I mean, she has to be themed a bit around Valdivian because of Valdivian technically being the place you work. I don't like her realized. I want to talk about the realized outfit first, because I think her original outfit is so cool. I don't like the realized outfit. I'm glad that it's supposed to be partially. I'm glad that it's a mix of like the lessons she learns, and that the jacket still feels a little bit like it's a professional jacket in the sense of like she still has some of the Valdivian stuff, like the Valdivian coloring of like accessories and things, and she has this sort of fanciest jacket, but then she wears this dress that's like it splits into pants. I don't know what that's called exactly, but it's like a super bright yellow and it has this giant pink ribbon on it, and then she has all these really colorful like pink, orange, and blue, green things or whatever, where it's like casual but also a little formal, and she wears like, I can't tell if they're, I think they're supposed to be boots or maybe it's white heels or something underneath. She still has a bit of the professionalism, but she looks like she's ready to go party. I like that there's more color to her outfit, but it feels, some of it, like the giant ribbon and the choice of some of the colors, just feel kind of random. I'm like, what were the reasons for these decisions? Her regular outfit, I think it's so cool. It's so fashionable. I didn't even realize about the Valdivian logo at first. I first thought, like, why the hell does she have this giant like flower thing on her shoulder? I thought it looked stupid, and then I looked at it from far away. Like, I leaned back from the screen while I was playing one time, and I realized, oh my gosh, it's the Valdivian logo. It helps that like the screen, the Valdivian chat screen is still up when you talk to her, or at least if you have that open, so the logo was literally right there. But I think that's a cool way of doing it, of having this giant flower and then having the like check mark thing. I actually really like the check mark thing, the way it's incorporated. Makes me think of like fancy fashion stuff, and the way it's not like the Nike logo where it's like one long streak. It's like divided in her outfit into like two pieces. I think that's cool. I like her little star necklace. I don't know what that has to do with work or Valdivian, but I think it's like a cute accessory and it kind of fits. And I like the black and white. Our outfit's not completely black and white. It has like some blue in there as well. But I think that's cool. I like her little pantsuit thing or whatever, with the like the pants being kind of wide at the bottom and then the black shoes. I like the black and white parts of the accessories. She has these little, like, I'm always gonna refer to it as like Vocaloid, but like the cuffs. Anytime I see anything that looks like it's like, I don't think it's buttons in her case, but that looks like it's buttons and it's some kind of like thing on your arm, I am always going to think of Hatsune Miku's. And other Vocaloids have it too, of like the glove things with like the buttons or whatever, because I just think that's so cool in general. I actually like her little neck collar thing as well. I noticed it also has the Valdivian logo on it, but it also looks like a W, which is kind of funny. I like the little keyboard looking thing on the bottom part of her like dress or whatever. I think that looks cool, and I like the blue and the way it's like a really pretty shade of like royal blue, but I like the placement of it on her outfit, how it doesn't look like it's just kind of randomly in that one corner. It's like it like fits. And I really like the shape of her dress as well, how it's so like these rough cuts and angles to also match with the Valdivian logo. The fact that it's not like one, like the bottom of the dress doesn't go like in one direction, it like becomes this sort of triangular thing that matches with like the logo having that check mark part that sticks. I feel like there's so many conscious fashion decisions. I just think it's so cool, honestly. I actually really like this outfit. Probably one of my favorite things about her. But yeah, the outfit's great. What else? Oh, apparently she can be invited to Zoe's seance. I didn't know that. I'm realizing for that, it's mostly the characters in the seance are like the ones that are like concepts of things or live in the attic. That's interesting. I like her conversations with the other characters where she's trying to be professional with them. It almost feels like a little too much, but I get what she's trying to do, where some of them feel like they don't know what she's talking about. I think it's specifically the people she picks. She picks a lot of the like, she picks like really goofy characters to do the interviews for. I get why she's picking them, but it makes her frustrations a little funny, but I also feel bad for her. I feel like there's so many other characters that are like completely serious that could match her vibe, but I get the ones she picks are the ones that have the most like marketing potential in universe or whatever. Because like at first it's the Hanks, the interview ends up being terrible, and then next it's Dunk, and I thought, oh, maybe this will turn out better. but he has so much enthusiasm. He's like the equivalent of like a golden retriever, so I can understand why it doesn't work. I like how he does his dramatic introduction and it makes him late to the meeting or whatever. And I think he reads something off his hand. No, that's during the dev conversation. I remember there's a part of the game where Dunk is reading something off his hand, and there's a person who asks him, "Are you reading off your fucking hand right now?" And he's like, "Yeah." But that's during the dev conversation. But yeah, and there's Dunk, and then it's supposed to be with Scandelabra, who doesn't actually show up, but he asks for a kiss in exchange as like blackmail, and she ends up slapping him, and then she gets upset about being unemployed and says like, "All right, you're the one that got me in this mess, do something about it." And then you can ask to have a spa day with her, and then there's an entire conversation where she like rambles about AI as well that I thought was written pretty well. But I like that once you get her to have the spa day, which at first she thinks is kind of silly, and it's like, okay, fine, we'll have a homemade spa day, whatever. She's immediately more relaxed and seems like she enjoyed it. I like that you have at least some kind of bonding activity with her. I just think she was a character I forgot a lot about. Not anything to do with her personally. It's just because she's one of the people that lives on your phone. All the people that live on your phone, I kind of just forgot about the ones that are all apps, like Skylar's an app. With Phoenicia, at least, you can also, I think, just use the date meters open on your phone. Because I used it constantly anyway. Like, I never used the data decks, but I was, when I was playing through the game, I would check through my specs. You know, that's the way you save, and you go to the home menu, and I actually didn't really use any of the helpful apps for the most part. Like, I read the data decks a lot during the demo just for funsies, but more for the descriptions. And there's a lot of helpful things in there. I never really read the rumors and used them to help me. I mostly just kind of used them as like a checklist of like, okay, what haven't I talked to? And that's about it. The thing is that I spent 10 hours in the demo searching for everyone, so by the time I got the first game, it wasn't only that I remembered where people were and what was interactable, it was also like I'd met the characters too, so I kind of had to order to my madness. I never, except for in the demo, I never really had the moment of like, the demo was my thing of like running around the house being like, oh, let's interact with this, and who is this, and whatever. So yeah, I didn't use most of the apps on the phone, but yeah, I at least use the phone a lot. So it's kind of a reminder of like Phoenicia's there, but with Skylar, she was just limited to the app, and I didn't really like talking to her. I do kind of view her as tutorial lady, and I don't like that, but that's kind of what she is, and I don't find her route. Her lore is interesting, but as a route for a character, as a way to date them, I think it kind of sucks. And then Reggie, I never used his app because I didn't really like Reggie and I didn't really care. And then Willie, I didn't even realize the concept of your work was dateable because I don't feel like it's really obvious of like you check your work app and then you use the heart or whatever, because I mean it did constantly pop up during the game as like the David most messages, but like, and occasionally Tom, but that was like about it. I didn't really view any of that stuff as important. I only knew she existed because I read about it somewhere of like, oh, there's a character if you use it on your work, and I'm like, what, really? So yeah, that was pretty much it. She doesn't really appear in people's storylines. She kind of reminds me of Skylar in that sense of like she's kind of easy to forget about. I do wish she was a little more popular because I did actually like her route. I don't think her character is like amazing or her personality. She is kind of one of those that's like really harsh. And I feel like Keys, in terms of character development, kind of, it's like a little easier to get into of like, you see her being like kind of a dork and whatever, and it's a bit of a longer route. But she's alright. I surprisingly liked Willie more than I thought I would. Okay, Lyric is another one, kind of the same complaint I have with Tyrell and Jerry, of it is a very short route that kind of just isn't really anything. Hold on, where is Lyric? Let's talk about the design first, because that's actually the thing that I find most memorable about Lyric. I like that he doesn't have legs. I like that he's supposed to be kind of like a genie or something, where he just I think the idea of the pages floating around and being like a tail, are really cool, and I like that for the concept of literature. I feel like it could be a lot of things. I'm actually glad that they didn't make his design just like a bunch of books. Like, the fact that it's specifically paper, but specific types of paper, I think is really fun. A good way to show like literature can be anything. With the tail thing being just like written paper, I love the parchment being like accessories and wrapped around this character, and like the floating paper. I think the hair being a book is really goofy and kind of fun, and I just freaking noticed that the glasses lenses are books themselves. I don't really like the quill, the giant feather, or like the way it's positioned actually, because it's just positioned. Oh, I'm sorry, never mind. The default pose it was showing it where it's just on the shoulder, and I'm like, oh, that looks weird. And I realized it matches with his emotions and he uses it. Like when he gets angry, the feather kind of dips down. I noticed that with some characters where their accessories actually move to match their emotions, like with Holly's. I love it where the bunny will sometimes drop its ears and the skeleton literally changes faces. I love that because it reminds me of like, oh yeah, you're talking to them and they have a human face right now, but at the end of the day, they are the object. Like all the things they are surrounded by are also them, you know? So the fact that those emote too, and sometimes in like a cute little way, like the feather dipping or whatever Holly stuff, I think is kind of fun. But the I never noticed even some of these poses, like the feather is sometimes writing on one of the pieces of parchment, like it changes to being written, and sometimes he's holding it as like a quill pen. So I think that's kind of cool. I think there's some fun poses here. There's just a lot with this character's design. I actually like the placement of the tattoos. I think they're kind of cool. I don't like every character's tattoos. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit much. I like the two quills that are on the stomach. I love the little worm on the paper tattoo. I could see myself getting that, not the paper, and I get it's supposed to probably be like a pun on bookworm. I think the art of the worm is adorable. I would get that as a tattoo. I've been meaning to get a tattoo actually. I've had that thought for the last like 2 years. The problem is I'm the wish-washiest person on earth, and I have an entire Pinterest of like potential ideas. I can't decide on anything. I know what placement and stuff, I just can't think of a thing. And this game is low-key helping me in seeing all the placement of tattoos and characters and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't think I'd get a tattoo of anything, of like the tattoos in this game or of the characters or anything. I love this game, but not enough where I'd want to get a tattoo of it. But though I can think of some cool ideas. It probably would be fun to get inspiration from. Anyway, but yeah, I like the worm tattoo, and Lyric is one of my favorites in the game. I like the shirt being like these rumpled pages, and it looks kind of like fabric. I like that newspapers, or like, I think it's a comic book actually, I can't tell if it's newspaper or comic book. I like that that's included too, and it's something visual that's also part of like the concept of literature and stuff. I just don't like that it's a collar. I think it looks kind of weird. But I like the floating paper around, and the little bookmark on the hair being like a hair accessory. And I like that the default pose is that he's reading like object erotica fan fiction. The fact that that's a thing that pops up so much in this game is kind of funny. Like with actually, I don't remember if it's part of there's some stuff with this game. I've been looking at so much fan stuff where I can't remember if things that I talk about with the characters are real things that happen in the routes, and it's just something I didn't encounter because I went for like a specific type of ending, or I didn't pick a dialogue choice or whatever. Or if it's like a real thing that's in the game, or something that someone read or as like fan art or whatever, especially if it's anything to do with people's theories and Reddits or headcanons or something. I swear I remember something, but I don't remember it in the game. Or maybe it's just people talking about of Hector writing fan fiction about the player and objects, which sounds like something he would totally do. And I only kind of vaguely know about that because apparently someone did a cameo, or like had the VA do a cameo of reading like in Hector's voice a fan fiction about the player character. But I don't know if that's a real thing. I know there's 100% someone in this game, I remember it, in a route of writing fan fiction about the player character and themselves in object form. I don't remember who it is. I think it's Maggie, and she turns it into an actual book. I don't remember if Fantina does as well. I feel like if there's anyone who's going to write fan fiction, be good at it in the game, it would probably be Hector, because of the way he talks is kind of like Wattpad fan fiction is how it's usually described. Anyway, yeah, I like Lyric's design. I think it's one of the more unique ones in the game. I like I really like the like mermaid tail of pages and having that be stuff for paper. I think that's so cool. It makes me think, and I've said it before, I wish there's more characters with design stuff like that, where they didn't. I know there's ones that just like Freddy or Nightmare and Shadow Lord pre-transformation that are specifically non-humans, which is really cool. That not everyone is like a human looking person. I'm fine with them being humans. I just wish it was more sometime like seeing Lyric makes me think I wish it was more of like a hybrid thing with the furniture, and it doesn't have to be like monstrous or cursed of like someone literally morphing into furniture or whatever, but it could be like the metal ones. I think of like cyborgs or something. I keep thinking about like what would Mac look like as an android or whatever, or like with doll joints like a robot or something. Or the ones made out of wood would be kind of interesting if they were more like, I keep thinking about like Pinocchio being made out of wood or something, or just stuff like that, especially because there's so many furniture textures but they exist as part of the clothing. And I don't know, I liked a lot of the designs of this game. Of course, it's like nothing against the artist or whatever, but I keep thinking about that when I see Lyric, and I'm like, damn. Or like some of the non-human characters, and I'm like, that would be so cool. But I get the point, is like everyone has to be a hot human. Anyway, Lyrics, let's get back to Lyric. I like the realized design as well. I think it's fun. I don't really understand. I mean, I get it, but I didn't feel like it was necessary of the snake companion and the bird. At first I thought it was random, and I realized the placement of the snake is supposed to be the page that follows him around on his shoulder, which I thought that was a fashion thing. I did not think that was sentient. The quill as the bird I think is kind of cute though. That one makes more sense to me because it's like a literal quill feather in the non-realized form, and it like I literally said, it moves based on Lyric's emotions. So then the idea to realize that and turn it into a bird is kind of clever. I like the shirt. I'm realizing there's several characters that have like in their outfits of like red shirt, red boots or whatever, or shoes, and it's like a red and white color scheme or something. It works every time. I don't know. The collar works better here. Just that the inclusion of a collar, never mind the fact that it's made out of newspaper. I feel like it looks cool. It works better here because the rest of his outfit is a vest. So like a vest with a big collar, I feel like fits better than the pages and whatever. I like that he's still reading the fan fiction. I like the way the snake actually curls around him. I think it's kind of cool. And the shirt, I think, is just like it's supposed to be a book, but it's open, so I feel like it's kind of a cool shape for the shirt. I don't think the pants change. Oh my gosh, the pants don't change. The pants are literally just... I mean, he has legs now instead of the tail, so that's important, obviously. But the fact that the pants aren't like a fabric or anything in the realized form, they are literally just pants made out of pages. It looks good with the outfit, but also that works. That feels like a thing someone would do. It's not like out of the ordinary. I feel like I'm supposed to hate it based on my previous criteria of it's the objects, but they're human, so why is it here? But it fits. The shoes, I feel like Lyric has more like the original design is like it's supposed to be themed around paper and different types of literature, and I like when he's realized there's more book imagery that's everywhere. I think that's kind of cool, but it's like made to look Actually, no, the shoes are books. I think it's kind of lame. I like that they're kind of curvy at the top. I think that's fun. I get what they're trying to go for, but I'm like, you're a human, it's too much book imagery. And it's the difference between the paper pants and the book shoes is that I don't think anyone's going to wear those book shoes. I'm sorry. I think someone would absolutely wear pants made out of paper though like that. I think it actually looks really cool. Okay, so that's design stuff. Lyric has one of the more unique designs in my opinion. The story kind of sucks. I like the idea of, and he points it out, of the concept of literature having writer's block and reading, the idea of reading all of these things and having all this knowledge and not knowing how to write a story of your own, I think is cool. I kind of like that trope when it's someone who's like, usually they're portrayed as a big nerd or whatever, and they're like, I've read all these things, and having all this knowledge but not having the experience and stuff and being like a newbie in that department. I think it's supposed to mirror that, but with writing. And I do like the idea of, hey, you're gonna write a book with the concept of literature and you get to pick the genre and stuff and see how it turns out. I think that's something that's done, like a similar type of thing in other people's routes. I think it's fun. So I like that. I like that you get to pick the genre. I like that you actually get to pick line by line what the book is for the most part, and then that there's an interaction where you have other characters show up to read the book based on what you wrote, though I don't like that you are kind of judged in that aspect. You don't get to just like pick whatever and it's for fun, but it's that you're judged. I get it, because you're supposed to get like a good or bad ending or whatever. And then your fourth interaction is the book is published and the group's reaction. And I get it that his whole feelings towards the player would be determined by if they helped him with the book or not, but I feel like it's too easy, and it just needs, I get he's the concept of literature and wants to write a book, but I feel like he's one of those I still don't really know enough about as a character, other than we're gonna help you write a book and book things and whatever. That's what's one thing that bothers me with characters in this game is like, and I get it, they're objects. That is the first and foremost important thing. They're not humans, they don't have human life experience, I understand, but like as characters in terms of like, not really like ability, but just because I feel like their personalities do kind of come through with their storylines and stuff. It's just the amount of information you know about them and like getting to know them. Because like the concept of dating, I mean, I'm not a dating expert or anything, of like you get to know someone and it's like a two-way thing of like they get to know about you, you get to know about them, and that's like the important thing, like what Dante explains about like getting to know their interests and whatever, and being more comfortable around each other and stuff. I feel like the concept of dating, it's a dating sim, but I feel like I don't really get that from a lot of the characters, especially the ones like Lyric with really short routes, or like some of the other ones with really short routes or routes. I like that there's routes that are fun, that are just for fun and stuff, and they're more chill, and I appreciate that. It balances emotionally some of the other routes, but it's also like there's some characters where it's like I understand your personality, but I'm not getting to know you, or especially the ones where it's like you don't really get to know them as like a person, their struggles or anything outside of, or like they don't really have a personality outside of their purpose. Like Kopi's thing, I mean, you do get to know her struggles of working in Roofbox, and she does have a character arc and stuff, but like her whole thing is coffee, and that's it. Where it's kind of thing where it's like, if, and I get it, they're objects, they have to take it personally, I completely understand it, of like, if you don't like their thing, they don't like you or something, or you wouldn't have anything to talk about. And just the idea of someone whose entire personality revolves around one thing, and that's the only way to get you to like them, bothers me. Like with real people, that bothers me. Actually, those are the kind of people I wouldn't talk to. So I guess in that sense, it makes sense. Like as an object, it makes sense. That's their purpose, that they are literally the thing. So if you don't like the thing, it's the equivalent of like, you don't like them. I get it. I feel like I don't know anything about Lyric outside of the book thing. Writing the book, to be fair, is fun. There is some really funny options. I thought you were supposed to write the one that was like the noir story, because that's what he originally wanted, but you're actually, I mean, I don't know how many ways it can go, but I noticed if you write the orgy one, that the audience, the book club people love it, and you get like a love ending or something. I understand why it would lead to a love ending, of course. But yeah, I don't know. It's like it's fun, but it's not as fun as other routes where there's something that's in it that's like keeping me engaged or keeping me wanting to see what happens next over. Like Gaia's and Penelope's are also fun, kind of chill routes. But the difference between those and lyrics, besides the fact that they're like a bit longer, is that there's something that keeps me interested of like, oh, what's going to happen on, who are they going to date next? What other people are we going to meet and learn about and stuff? It's just like, give me a little bit more, you know? Like, I like the concept of lyrics route, and I think it is kind of handled well of like, you help write the book and you have the meeting and the publish the book, and then it's like, that's it. Even his dialogue afterwards is about him trying to write more stuff and whatever. It just, I don't know, it's kind of a bummer in that sense. I feel like that makes him a character that also is kind of forgettable to me. I feel like there's a lot of characters where it's like they're really cool in some way, but there's just something about it where I just forget that they exist. Also because it's a game with 100 characters, so. Okay, it's Geode time. We're gonna, hold on. Ow. I don't know if it's because I was staring down at my phone, but my neck feels like it's kind of... I feel like I need a neck massage or something. So we're at number 59, by the way. We're almost down to 60. So in 2.5 hours, we have done 10 people, which isn't that bad. We're getting there. We're getting there. Let me see here. I'm going to do at least all the way to like 70. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Okay. So Geode time, which I feel bad not referring her by her name, but I'm going to be honest. I don't remember how to pronounce her name, and I feel like I'm going to probably get it wrong, and I'm going to feel really bad if I'm constantly butchering it. She's one of the few characters in the game I just don't like her as a person. I don't like her. I don't. I'm sorry. It's the concept of people, just people that think they're better than everyone else is just always something that bothers me. It's why I didn't get along with Bathsheba either, but like there's sort of something about her. I like her perspective a little bit on humanity, of that she wants to learn more about humans. Like she looks down on us in a sense of, but I get it. She is an immortal goddess. And I feel like some things with her personality make sense when it's explained. One of the characters, I think it's Scandelabra, that specifically describes her before you meet her as this object from a nation. I'm assuming she was used as like a worshipped thing. I don't know if they knew she was an actual goddess or just worshipping this geode. I feel like she was probably using that concept, and the fact that she was stolen and taken overseas and hidden in your house. I wish I remembered what her dialogue in the adventure was. I skipped it the last time, so I don't remember what her reaction is to being found, but then she ends up deciding to live in your office, and yeah, but I think that explains stuff with her personality. Assuming she's an object for worship, I don't know what she was originally used for prior to being in your house and being in that chest. That could make sense with her personality of viewing herself as a goddess, even though she's like used as a decoration in your house, and wanting to demand respect. And if it was clear that it was that, I feel like I would be a little more sympathetic. I feel like it could be kind of like Keys, of like believing you're used for this specific purpose, and then with Keys finding out she's a hand-me-down in your house and freaking out and coming to terms with that. If it was like that, I feel like I could understand her character a little more. Or maybe she's a goddess. I mean, she is technically immortal. She's absolutely right about that from like the object perspective. I do like when she talks a little bit more existentially of like being from the earth, and that the earth will be here when you die, and that aspect I think is kind of cool. The idea of being a geode, of being this like beautiful piece of rock cut from the earth. I just don't like how she talks to you as a person of, in order to get her good ending and not get friend zone or get the romance ending, you do have to worship her and stuff, and it bothers me, and I just don't like the way she talks to the player. I do like that her perspective on humanity, in the sense of like, she views humans as like, I mean, it's still in a way of looking down on them, of like these little things or whatever. Like, she doesn't treat them as like equals, or she treats them as something lesser, but it's more in the way of like, you curious little humans, I'm curious about your world and about you. I do like that she asks the player like, oh, what are you planning to do for the rest of your day? Like, what do you do when you're not worshiping me or whatever? Or I like when she asks your opinion about, I don't remember if it's love or it's about life or your goal. Like, she genuinely does want to learn about your goals and dreams and stuff. I know it's from the aspect of like you these little creatures, and she does describe them as how quaint. It almost reminds me of Wendlyn, of like, in a sense of like, they're insulting you, but they don't see it as a problem, in a sense. So I am glad, like, I don't like she's making fun of humanity and she's still kind of insulting you, the two honesty thing. But I'm glad it's at least not like a superiority in the sense of like, humanity is lesser than me, humanity is scum, because I could see it being seen that way. I feel like her route could have been a number of things, if I think of it as like the earth personification of like, maybe it has to do with how humanity is treating the earth. I feel like it could have been an environmental thing, or maybe the idea of being like this piece of rock that's cut out of the earth. I do like that she has the conversation about like, when she does want respect because she knows she's being used as a decoration in your home and being kind of reduced to that. I'm glad the game touches on it a little bit. What I was kind of curious about, I want to know the concept of like her journey of being, of her backstory could have been a route too, of like how she lived on this island and whatever she was used for, and her feelings of being literally stolen, being a stolen object, and then being locked in a chest in the crawl space. I mean, you hear other crawl space characters and their opinions of being in the crawl space, and all of them hate it. Like Vaughn and Keith talk about it a lot, and I like that we get their perspective of what's it like of being locked away in this dark place. I mean, I don't know if they're locked. I don't know if any of the Dorians have locks on them. I mean, the one in the attic does, because you have to open them with the keys. And I don't know if you can lock a trap door, actually. I mean, it was covered by the rug and stuff, so in a sense of that, they were hidden. I don't know, maybe Dorian just didn't let them leave or something. Anyway, what was I going to say? But yeah, the geode is locked in the chest and you have to like go rescue her and stuff. So in that aspect, she's literally locked in there and being kept away from everyone else and being locked in a small space. So I think that could have been an interesting route of that perspective of like, not only of being taken away from this location and then locked in a dark space for a long time away from everyone and being rescued. Because I think the idea that you have to go on this adventure to rescue her is really cool. I mean, I get what I'm saying is also describing Key's route, and I'm glad there's not two of those. I do think it's interesting. I think it's more of, I want to know the perspective of what is it like being an object and knowing that you are stolen. Because it's the same concept as if of like something that would be in a museum. What if you did rob something out of a museum? What if you were an object? I'm thinking about it as like a kind of an OC thing or whatever, of like you were someone that was stolen from someone's home and you were placed in someone else's house. Or just the idea of like being a stolen object of like, do you have worse feelings about yourself? Do you miss the place that you're from? And whatever your original purpose was, do you miss the people in your previous location, your life, being taken away from that life? And just the idea of being stolen what would that mean to an object? I think that would be something really interesting to explore. Anyway, I feel like she's a character that has a lot of potential. I'm fine with the way her route was, I guess, of like wanting to be worshipped in this goddess, and I do like that they explored it in the sense of like how she talks about morality of humans and and her perspective in like the existential sense. I like her love dialogue, which isn't even really a romantic confession. It's just more of like a, you know what, I like you, I'll allow you the hand of a goddess. I feel like it was less I like you and more of like, I like that you respect me, because that is literally the difference in terms of getting her friendship ending and her romance ending. Like, you can tell her about your dreams and whatever, and it seems like you're interested in her, but she's interested in you, but if you don't like full on worship her, I get the sense of wanting respect, but like worshiping someone on a pedestal that high rubs me the wrong way. Or like them having that superiority and wanting worship from someone bothers me. Not in like a religious aspect or anything, but just from one individual. Like, I get that she's the earth goddess, but it's like, lady, you live in my house as a decoration. Like, don't toot your horn that high. But yeah, that's the difference between getting a friendship thing and a romance thing, because the guide I followed had it for friendship instead of romance. It didn't have the option about the dialogue about like having to respect her and whatever, so I got friend zoned, and luckily I was able to reload a save. I panicked about that, by the way. I want to just talk about that as the further thing about this character. I got her friendship ending. Thankfully I had a previous save, and I did have to redo an entire like real life days worth of talking to characters, and because I had done a bunch of like endings and stuff, I had to like re-talk to like 10 different characters again. I literally did not sleep the entire night. I panicked because I thought, oh my gosh, I got a friend ending, which is not bad, and I don't like this character, but it was because I'm trying to do a romance ending, and I was already pretty far into the game. I think I had already gotten endings with like at least half the house, and I was like, fuck. Especially because I knew I couldn't get the achievement about making couples, because I already fucked it up with Tina the moment I talked to her, and I didn't know until too late. And I was like, okay, I determined at that point I'm going to get the romance thing, and then I can get all the romance dialogue and realize everyone and just get the most out of this game as I can and whatever. And I was like, damn it, this character I don't even like screwed up my thing, and I was mad. And I did get that for Cherami too, but luckily it's an easy fix. You have to just kiss her in the final play or whatever. But yeah, I was pissed. I didn't sleep the entire night because I was stressed about it, sincerely. And it was weird when I woke up and I was a fucking zombie the whole day. And I don't think my parents noticed I was tired, but I mentioned I was tired. No, I lied. I didn't say I was tired. I said I was fine, because otherwise I knew I would be asked, why are you tired? And I would have had to make up some kind of excuse, and I couldn't explain to my parents about I ruined something for myself in a video game and I got so stressed out I couldn't sleep for the entire night. Anyway, let's talk about character designs. I've talked enough about her personality and her route, whatever. Oh, I do find it funny though that, and I don't get why unless it's supposed to be funny, how the hell did Vaughn bag her? He doesn't even understand either if you ask him about it. If you finish his ending, he says that he's dating the geode. Maybe she views him as like her little pet or whatever. I don't know, but I find that really funny that because I don't think he worships her or anything, but I guess she just likes him enough, whatever. To the point where it's canon, where like if you get their realization endings, it's mentioned in Vaughn's that he goes to visit her on the dairy farm, and she specifically requests her last few days where they're alone together. So that's interesting that they end up becoming a couple just kind of randomly at the end of a route, and it's not a couple that you put together. I think that's kind of cool. I'm surprised more stuff like that doesn't happen, where people just spontaneously hook up during the storyline or whatever. Anyway, her design's actually really pretty. I mean, geodes are very colorful and pretty anyway, so, you know, they can go all out. I like that her body, or like her the bottom part of her body is like the actual object in a sense, and then the top part, I like her sort of hair is like this little lining of purple crystals. I like that she looks like a statue in the way of art, but instead of already being carved, it's like she herself is carved into the object in a sense. Like she's popping out of the geode and the rest of it is her body. Like she doesn't have a full set of limbs, she just has a left arm, and that's literally it. But I'm glad she does have a arm, because it helps with the body language of being more expressive. I like the part of her that's carved. I think it actually looks really cool. I think her face looks awesome. I like that she doesn't have pupils. I love whatever that golden heart pattern is on her forehead. I'm surprised she has lipstick because she's rock, but whatever. I actually like that there's several like characters that don't have pupils, specifically the like elemental ones. Like I know Dante doesn't have them either. I don't remember if Aaron, no, I'm pretty sure Aaron has pupils and River does as well, but I just think that's a really interesting concept. And it kind of makes them more spooky and more like ethereal that they don't have pupils. Like they still emote with their eyes and very clearly show emotions. I like with Rangama when I'm not gonna get her name right. I thought for a second if I didn't say it for a while and if I read it I would get it right. I did not. I like that she looks really smooth because she's carved, but she still looks like she has the texture of like smooth rock. I feel like when I look at her, I know exactly what texture she's supposed to feel like, and I think that's really cool because I don't feel like that from all the objects, and that she just does not look human, and that's so cool. But she also still does. It kind of reminds me of Nightmare. I actually like all the purple crystals with the hearts that come out of her. I actually hate the way she looks as an object. I guess she's supposed to be like a 3D model and whatever, and you can't make her like perfectly shiny and stuff, but I think it looks kind of weird. I didn't understand it with like the hearts I thought it was something the player placed on top of her. I didn't realize they were carved into her. But I love her gold patterns of whatever they are. I think they look awesome. I actually do really like the crystals that pop out of her shoulder, or I guess they are her shoulder really. And just the fact that you have a character that like a humanoid character that can only really express themselves, their emotions, through their facial expressions and how they move their head and their hand, and that's it, because she doesn't really have the rest of like a human body, but she still comes off as expressive as everyone else. I think that's really cool. I like her chest section, where it's like it's also carved in, but it looks like it reminds me of like trees having the rings or whatever, and at the inside of it is a heart. I like to imagine it's like her literal heart. I like the pose she has. I think my favorite pose of hers is when she puts her hand to her chest. Kind of makes it look more like a boob for some reason when she does that. But I like when she does that, and the way she's tilted and looks at the player. It's kind of like an expression of softness. And I think it looks cool as a pose and like gets her emotion. Okay, so I guess, you know how I said at the beginning of this there wasn't anyone I directly hated? I still feel that. Because with every character, even though I don't like her, I can't even just say like, oh, I don't like her personality. I don't like her. There are things about her I still like. Like she's someone I'd never want to meet in real life and whatever. I've gotten the point across with that. I think her design is beautiful and really creative, and the way they still make her so expressive and stuff. And I do like some things with her route. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot about her realized. Her realized design is actually also cool, and I need to talk about her realization. Give me a second. Her realized design is really cool, where she still has a lot of the same like patterns and stuff, but they're like tattoos. I like the one in her chin that looks like a diamond. I like that her eyes are shaped like diamonds as well, and her hair becomes this purple, this like soft kind of dark purple that literally has sparkles. And I think her dress is so freaking cool with like the patterns of everything. Oh, I never noticed that she's barefoot. I guess that makes sense because she's like a former earth goddess. Like her realization thing talks about her wanting to connect to the earth. Like I thought it was really random. I'm like, why the heck does she end up working on a dairy farm? But it's because she's trying to find something messy, of being close to the earth, and then she goes to work on with animals and enjoying ice cream. I think her art is cute, where she sits with the lamb and she eats ice cream with it. And then that she gets to work into management, and it fits with her goddess thing of like wanting to give orders to people, but then it also fits with earth goddess of like working on a farm. And then I think it's funny of the idea of playing with kids, both goat and human. I can't imagine her having the patience to interact with I feel like she's someone that wouldn't know what to do with kids, but the kids would probably like her anyway. I can like picture it in my head. It's kind of funny. I like that if you romance her, she frequently stops by to deliver ice cream and cheese to you. Though I do think it's kind of interesting that she gets into making plaster molds of her body, and her interest in humanity, what humanity has to offer, and humanity being fragile and stuff. And that perspective of it, I'm glad that continues. I think it's just interesting realizing any of the like, I want to say goddess characters. I don't know. I feel like there's a difference, even though they're all like elemental, between the ones that are like kind of treated as like immortal goddesses or like goddesses, and the ones that are just elemental people. I think it's like a scale in a sense. I find it really interesting. I'm gonna go off on another tangent here. I didn't think I'd have so much to say for a character that I don't like, but it's just too many things that are coming up to mind. Okay. There's like a scale of elemental people. Like electricity is an element, but it's represented as two people, and they look like completely normal humans, other than the part that like having electric hair or whatever. Like, of them being made out of their element, they're kind of not really. I get that's more of like Volt's whole purpose of being electricity, but it doesn't. They have like mostly human designs and whatever, and like their normal job and stuff. And then there's like River, who's or then there's like Prissy, who's plants, but is also kind of sort of a similar thing, but of like mostly looking human and stuff. But it's her thing of wanting to be a real plant and becoming that element, but she still talks about like her roots and whatever, and wanting to feel the sun and like the perspective of a plant. And then there's like River, who, despite being water, which I would assume is a goddess, her route, I mean, it is about changing forms of water and stuff, so it is literal in a sense, but like her route is more about who she is as a person and her personality. And she seems just human to me, like both with the way she always sounds very emotional. I find that interesting. I just really like the way she sounds, like her voice. I don't know. And despite literally being made out of water and stuff, and maybe it's also because she has pupils, she doesn't ever look down on the player or like have a perspective of humanity or talks about immortality or like any of that stuff. She just has none of it. And then Dante, I feel like, is like a step higher, where he also has to do with elemental. No, I mean, his route doesn't. It has to do with like romance that just has a lot of fire puns, but he does look more like an elemental person to me than River in a sense, despite her being just water. I don't know how to explain it. Of him, I mean, he's your fireplace, but he is like fire. you know? And then it's Eren and Rongo my Wendo. I messed up the last part. I keep thinking there's a D in there when there's not. But the narrator pronounces it with the D, so I don't know. With Eren and the Geode, they're like describe themselves to be immortal and they have a perspective on humanity. It's just Eren's is that she kind of doesn't seem to care. And then when you realize her, she's no longer controlled by the elements and she gives up her immortality to become human, and she's kind of a little uncautious. She's like, I guess she's neutral towards humanity, but more positive than the Geode. And then she suddenly becomes a chatterbox and is suddenly very friendly and open and kind of just becomes a different person than when she was an element and seems happier. And then the Geode lady is the one with the like the goddess complex and stuff and looking down on humans. It's like a whole scale and of like, and I just think that's so interesting is they're all different elements of like the earth, and then technically under that it's like plants, and then there's water and fire, but it's like your fireplace, and there's electricity, but it comes from like your breaker box, and there's air, and they're all different elemental things, but as characters and their personalities and storylines, they're all handled so differently, and that diversity of it I think is just really cool. Okay, we're on to number 60 now. This video is already like 3 hours. I'm gonna get to 70 anyway. Next is Chance. I really like Chance, actually. I think he's fun. I wonder if he's so popular. I think about that sometimes. Is it because his entire route is basically just D&D? Is it the voice actor thing? Is it because people constantly ship him with Parker, which I find really funny? I don't know if I ship that. I'm whatever about it. I do think it's kind of fun. I get it that they're both games, and Chance does show up in Parker's route, and Parker literally says Chance won't let me roll a dice for our relationship for some reason, even though I want to. I mean, Parker literally describes Chance as like my good friend Chance, so I'm assuming they're sort of friends, kind of. I don't know. I mean, Chance is there and chats with Parker, but it's mostly about how, dude, it's weird that you're deciding your relationship on a dice roll or whatever, and just the fact they even have a canon interaction at all. And I wonder, I mean, it could be interpreted that dialogue of like Chance won't let me roll for our relationship could mean, what if it's not the result that Chance wants? Or so, what if he hypothetically wanted romance and he gets friend zoned or hated by Parker or something? I do love that though, that there's someone who refuses to roll the dice and just keeps Parker in suspense forever, but Parker still kind of views him as like a friend, or at least friendly anyway. So it's interesting. I mean, he's like that with the player too. Like he's naturally just like friendly, but you don't get like an ending or a status unless you roll the dice. Anyway, Chance is fun. His route takes place in one interaction, but the difference for me and the reason it works is it's one session of the playthrough, and it could become, you could die, you could win. It's like a whole storyline. There's so much freaking dialogue, but that's okay. But it works. It's like speedrunning an entire D&D campaign. It's great. Rather than just having one session. And I like that it's just you and Chance and whoever your companion is. It's not like a full party. My thing with D&D, I don't really like tabletop games, actually, which I feel weird saying because my brother is like obsessed and is always the dungeon master. But anyway, yeah, my brother, it's weird for me because like my brother's super into it, and he's offered to do like individual campaigns with me, which I have tried like once and is easier for me. And so many of my friends are into D&D, and I get it's a popular thing and I'm not judging it or whatever. I think for me it's hard. Like, I feel like I should be into it because like fantasy stuff is fun. I know there's not just like fantasy stuff. Hell, there's even like Pokemon campaigns, which I was supposed to with my brother at one point, and we just didn't. I think for me, it's like, of getting into a character is really hard for me. Like, I can get into characters, and I'm like a bit of a maladaptive daydreamer, honestly, mostly about things I'm interested. I get like fucking into it with like dialogue and stuff that I'm constantly thinking about and whatever. I just never write any of it down. And like when I wrote my own stories, I get so heavy into the characters and dialogue, and it's a thing I get excited about in stories, so I feel like it's something I should be into. I think the hard part is if it's a story I'm not writing, even if it is my own character and I'm put into someone else's scenario, and the fact of you having to be a character to do it, I think I just can't really get into it. It's not for me, but I do think it's cool anyway and stuff. But anyway, I like Chance's route, and doing a D&D campaign through the game and the way it's done there and stuff, and it's not supposed to be anything stressful or multiple sessions or whatever, or having to worry about other people. I think in that aspect I'm like, oh yeah, it is kind of fun in like this context or whatever. I've only done two. I mean, it's one interaction, but it's like 3 potential storylines depending on what class you pick. And I like that you have a different companion as well, so I think it makes it worth multiple playthroughs. It does make me sad that it's just the one interaction, in the sense that it was really fun and I would have loved to do more or to do all of them, but it works perfectly because Chance, depending on your like, if you're cool with it and you play and you have fun and you're into it and whatever, he immediately already likes you, and that's it, and the route is over. Like, in the relationship aspect, it works perfectly and stuff. I think it's great, and I like that it's doing this D&D campaign as a way to win his love, depending on your options or whatever of choosing your ending through that. I think it's so cool. I don't think it needs more. I think it works perfectly as a one interaction thing. I learned enough about the character and stuff of Chance. It's just that I wanted more interactions because it was so fun. I wanted to do it again. And you don't get to, that's it. And I'm like, so in that aspect I wanted more, but not for the reasons as like everyone else. I feel satisfied by it. I think it's a fun route. I find it interesting that you don't ever really have to attack anything from the classes I've played, where you have the option to, or to be sneaky, or to really attack someone or whatever. Except for the class with the bard, I think it's called the troubadour, you do attack the boss and you can win. I like the dialogue for it, where one of the things just says, what are you going to do? And it says in all caps, la la la, die die die. That was funny. A lot of the players' dialogue options for doing the G&G campaign I think are really funny and just fun. I love Chance doing the voices for the characters. It almost reminds me of like Connie. Chance's route, actually, of doing the campaign and being immersed in the story and doing the voices is kind of what I wish Connie's was, even if it's just like Moon Surgeons. And I wish Connie's route was basically Chance, of like having the different interactions be going through an entire like one video game and having her do the voices and all that stuff. I feel like that would have been cool. But yeah, Chance's route is fun. I haven't done all 3 of the classes, so I don't know the full extent of everything. I liked having Jerry and Dasha as companions. I think they both had fun commentary. I liked Jerry's commentary of him summoning all of these objects of like real world things, of like erasers and other stuff, and Chance is like, I don't know, but I'll allow it, sort of thing. And I think let's talk about character design first. And then I'll talk about personality. I'm so glad that he has both of the sprites. Like, when you meet him, he has the hood, and I just think like, I thought nerd at first. I mean, he is a nerd, but I like that he gets to take it off and you get to see what he actually looks like, and you're like, oh, okay. I mean, he still looks like a nerd, but like, he doesn't look as suspenseful of having the hood on and stuff, because the hood, it like makes this like weird red glow underneath and it's like spooky. It's just he has the glasses. I think he is supposed to have red eyes though. I love how there's so many cool fashion things with his outfit and stuff, from just being like, I get what he's supposed to represent and there's a lot of things you can pull from, but the physical object is the D20. That's it. It's just the one thing. I mean, I'm assuming he's also like being the whole concept of the game of being like the book and the character sheets and the bag and like everything, but like as a physical thing in your house, it's just that one like little dice thing. That's it. His outfit is actually so cool. Pattern wise, it is so busy and crazy, but it works. I like the glasses. I like that they kind of look like sunglasses. I love the shirt, not the book vest thing. I actually hate the book vest thing. I think it looks kind of weird, but I get what they're going for. I like the hood being the numbers for the D20. I think that's is that, I know that's not what it's called. I know it has like a specific term. I love the shirt of the map, and I just noticed as I'm zooming in, some of the map is formed as these little islands that look like hearts, but they look like they're hand drawn. I love the map shirt. I think it's a cool pattern. I like the shorts and the way they're tied, are the little bag that you hold stuff in. I think that's so creative actually, and it has a really fun pattern with the swords and the shields and stuff. I even like the belt buckle of it. I think it looks like an actual, these could be an actual pair of shorts and I would wear them. They work as a fashion item. I love the bracelet having these little gems that make me think of like the rubies from Zelda. I love all of his jewelry actually. It's so fun. What are the shoes? Okay, the shoes are cool actually. The shoes are really fucking cool actually. Damn. It's the shape of the thing, the D20. It's like the triangles and stuff, and it has this really cool, I love it, this like, for some reason, this black pattern that almost looks like a star, but just the colors and the design of the shoe, chef's kiss, it's perfect. What is the realized, oh, I remember the realized outfit. I love his realized outfit. I'm sorry, I haven't been reading all the character quotes on the wiki that start before the article, but it has the romance one that's really funny to me. Anyway, the realized design is cool as fuck. He gets this cloak. It's so cool. And then he actually carries around the book. I love that he keeps the jewelry. And I love the cloak, and it has this little like shirt thing that becomes that was the pattern from the shorts, like all the patterns. And then he has like the pants, and he keeps the shoes. He keeps all the parts of his outfit of things and patterns I already loved. He just has this really badass cloak. It's so fucking cool. It's perfect. Yeah, fashion wise and stuff, his design, it's peak. Okay, I already talked about the route. I like when he wants to do the voices and you let him and you can compliment him on it. And I like when he wants to do the villain monologue and he gets so excited about it. And I love there's a villain monologue for every route actually, for every storyline. My first playthrough, I didn't realize you can win. I did the option to sacrifice yourself for your partner, because it was like the guardian route or whatever. And chance was, I didn't think I was gonna get an ending. I didn't think I was gonna get a hate ending. I thought like, oh, I'm gonna probably have to do the encounter again because I died. And then instead I was so surprised that Chance completely loved it and was so emotionally moved, and that got me the romance ending. But I thought that was so cool. What was I gonna say? I like that before you start the campaign, you have the options to compliment and flirt, and he says, oh, that's not gonna help with stuff in the game, but you made me happy saying that. I think that's cute. I think he's a very charming character in like a very sweet way. He's just like really nice. I like getting him kind of flustered. Not as fun as like with some of the other characters, but it's kind of fun. And he's just so into the game, and he's so excited to play the game with the character, and he's like, oh my gosh, I finally have someone to play with. And I like his little phrases. I think Holy Crit even is the name of his character theme too, if I remember right, which sounds similar to Parker's, and it fits because it's like a medieval adventure sort of thing. But I love his little sayings about stuff and just how excited he gets about things. He's so like happy. It's really nice to see. I like his friendship romance dialogue where he is so blown away by your decisions and how you play the game and stuff that you've like won the way to his heart. I like the line where he said, I don't remember what the first part of it is, where he says something of like, the way you played is perfect. It's not directly the words "you're perfect," but it's along those lines. And then as he's saying that, I feel like the way it's the lines delivered, like he realized how much he actually likes you. Also, I thought it was cute of calling us like perfect. And then when you get to pick, he says, I'd love to roleplay with you again in any format, and then it's the line, and it's one of my favorite times of like the character sprite changing for an emotion thing that works. It's like perfect comedic timing when he says, can we move from character sheets to the other sheets, and the other sheets part is put on the second text box, and it goes from him kind of looking kind of embarrassed to the scary anime glasses for the other sheets option. It was just so funny and caught me off guard the first time I saw that. That's a portrait thing that I love in general. I don't know what it's actually called, but I know it is like the scary anime glasses, because you usually see it in an anime where the glasses become completely white and you can't see the person's eyes and they become shiny. Mac has that in their realization art actually, where it's usually someone with like a little grin of like to represent, like, I mean, sometimes it is used for a character that is supposed to be scary, but sometimes it's used as like kind of like someone's being a little cheeky, a little bit devious here. But yeah, Chance is a great character. He's really fun. It was one of the funnest routes and more memorable routes for me in the game. Yeah, perfect character all around. Okay, Maggie. Wait, no, hold on. Wait, I need to pull up my other notes. This is important. I was like, I remember analyzing Maggie's, something about Maggie. Let me see here. Hold on, my notes are taking forever to load. I think because I already have it open. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to say something about Chance. I love Chance's job that he ends up getting. It's D&D therapy. I don't know if that's a real thing or not. I hope it is, because that sounds really cool. But it's the fact that he does that he takes the classes on like psychology and the other stuff, and then goes back to being the DM, or I guess GM in this case. But I love that concept. It's one of my favorite things in terms of the jobs and how the Dateables use their passion and their experience of being an object for the betterment of humanity. He's still doing the same job and is still doing something he loves, but he transforms it in a way where it can help people. I think that's so cool, and I think it's perfectly in character too. It's probably my favorite realization thing. Anyway, I talked about Maggie. I thankfully have a notepad list I made of characters I talked to, because I talked about her with Sinclair, so I get to skip Maggie. Okay, good. I mean, I like Maggie. I don't want to skip Maggie, but you get what I mean. All right, Winifred. Winifred is someone I didn't really like at first, and then in my playthrough, she was like one of the last people I talked to. I mean, I shouldn't have, because I actually did in my first playthrough Bew and Jacques' adventure quest, I think like halfway through the game or something, in terms of and I say that in terms of like I should be more clear. I don't mean any of this stuff with realization or whatever, because I played the game in kind of two parts of doing all the awakenings and the stories first, and then realizing everyone after I was done with every single storyline. I never mixed it up or anything in case I needed someone for a story, for, you know, not to realize them. I didn't want to like screw myself over with someone's storyline. So I knew about that room because, you know, you have to go to the crawl space in the crawl space adventure and it forces you into the room, whatever. Winifred is there and I saw her. I don't think I realized she was an object because I don't know. I've never seen a water heater that looks like that. I don't think I've ever seen a water heater in my life, actually. So I know that's a thing that exists. You gotta heat your water somehow, whatever. I don't know what that looks like IRL. Of being like this big tube. I mean, I should have guessed of like, it's furniture. It's a game where you date furniture, so you have to technically assume everything is interactable, because with a lot of games it's like you're exploring a house and, you know, not everything is interactable. So I think in my mind I was treating it like that, of just like, oh, it's this big metal thing that's just in the house. I was just never curious about it. I didn't know what it was. I wouldn't even think that it was something sentient or whatever. So like I went in the room and went for me it was I think I'd found out through a guide or something actually about the crawl space or whatever. I couldn't find where the adventure was supposed to be. I didn't know what the heck the characters were talking about when the characters originally said like, you have to go under the house, there's something down there, whatever, there's a geode. I literally thought it meant you had to go outside and go physically under the house, or maybe it was something in your floorboards. I didn't the concept of a trap door. I think of that with attics. I see that in movies of like, you have an attic door that you pull down and there's stairs and then it's like, oh, a secret place or whatever. I didn't know that was and I know basements exist. I've never heard the word crawl space before just playing this game. So, and I didn't know that you could have a secret door that leads to underneath your house. That's actually really cool. I don't have that, so yeah, that's not familiar to me. But I mean, the fact that it is also hidden under the rug too, so I just, you know, I walked in that room and I didn't know it was there. I never would have found it, actually, if I hadn't like seen something about it online or whatever, that it existed. Anyway, but yeah, I didn't know Winifred was a thing until like late game. And I also talked to her late game in the second playthrough as well. I think she was someone that grew on me. I don't know. I didn't really like her at first. Okay, I'm sorry. I want to say something, but I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it where it doesn't sound really rude. It's more of a me being ignorant and not meeting certain kinds of people. I don't know. I don't know any like southern people or that much about like the American South and like the culture of it and stuff. And she's I hear things or like stereotypes or whatever of like the way southern people talk, not literally the accent, but like the politeness and manners thing that she has. I don't know how accurate any of that is, because I don't really live anywhere near there. I'm like on literally the opposite coast. Hold on, I'm trying to find Winifred on here. So the thing that bothered me about her, and then we'll talk about character design, is that she kind of was rude, but like not as rude as like Wyndlin to me, so it didn't bother me as much, but still just was enough to make me not really care for her. I did like her storyline though, about I didn't even realize it was about accepting being poly at first because I was so absorbed in the lore. Oh my gosh, I wrote a note about that somewhere. Hold up. Yeah, you get freaking Valdivian lore from your water heater. Okay, I need to talk about your house. The fact that your house has lore. I mean, I assumed that the house and the furniture itself was nothing special, that like, you know, anybody could have gotten the Date Vaders in a sense. I mean, of course, there has to be someone that worked at Valdivian and blah, 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 blah. But you're like your average Joe in a sense. You're not special. Your house, I mean, the only reason, I mean, all the furniture's sentient, but the only reason everywhere that like you get to talk to yours is specifically through having Skylar and the Date Vader thing. It's not like your house is haunted or magic or something of it being magic that then does something with the Date Vaders, the Date Vaders hit in your house or whatever. Your house is a normal freaking house, I assumed. I mean, it is. But the fact that Valdivian people specifically have lived in your house is very suspicious, except that I don't remember how the player gets the house. I've seen people write about it on Reddit where it's supposed to be that like you inherit the house or something. I thought maybe you got it from your job, but that sounds kind of silly unless jobs do give you a house or something, or just the whole thing of like, it's crazy then, of like you get a house from your job and then you're immediately fired from the job. You don't have to leave the house, you get to keep the house. I don't know, whatever. The player did not buy the house, I believe. But the fact that it's Valdivian people, if it's a house inherited from family and not a house from Valdivian, then the fact that Valdivian people live there as previous owners is crazy to me. Especially because I remember, and I'm not sure if I'd assumed that it used to be Franklin's house at one point, but I think I misunderstood because I remember Keith saying that like when you hack into the online journal that the previous owner, besides just being described as the previous owner, was very lonely and meticulous about things, that the previous owner, when you say it's Valdivian people that own the journal, was someone that is affiliated with your current employer. Because on my second playthrough and when I was doing the route, I knew that like, you know, Franklin and David, besides their history of the company, they're lovers. I thought it was implying that like the house you live in was like Tinfoil's old house, and I was like, oh shit. But no, it is, I don't know, but it is confirmed that like it's Valdivian people, and the characters keep specifically mentioning about the 70s, about the party with Rainey, and other characters mention about the 70s or whatever. No, it's Winifred. I wonder if it's the same party. She tells a story about a party and someone hiding in the room and stuff. Okay, no, I don't want. I want to talk about the poly stuff first, the second part of her route, and then I want to talk about Valdivian stuff because I'm gonna go on a fucking tangent about that. Let me think. The poly stuff, yeah, I like that it mirrors the human story about the couple and how it's interesting how it affected Winifred, of like she sees the couple arguing and the fact that the idea of like, oh, you have to pick between me or this person, and that's what caused the couple to break up. I can imagine that affected her, and her not thinking that like, oh, maybe you can't be with multiple people at once. I think it's interesting how that, like, a human event that she witnessed influenced her as a person. I mean, Arma has the same kind of backstory in that sense too, but and then Winifred telling you the story is also another way of talking about getting to know her and stuff. And then it turns into her having all these lovers, which is like crazy to me. That's so cool. Of her having the crush on Washford, which is interesting because she wants to be lovers with him too, which I'm sure he'd be fine with, but it's kind of almost funny of like, I felt bad for her of like, he is so freaking dedicated to Drysdale, but at the same time, I mean, he is open to multiple lovers because you can insert yourself into their relationship and he does fall in love with you. So yeah. But then obviously I feel like the one she has the most of a connection to is River. It makes me wonder if they would have had that connection if they were people and not objects, because I get it, like water, going to water heaters. I think about that with the objects sometimes, of like, if they weren't forced together because they're objects and that's how they work as objects, would a lot of them still have the same connections and relationships to each other? Especially because it's something really weird to me, like when you realize they're human. I mean, at least Prissy says goodbye to the other objects. I don't know about the others, but almost all of them, except for like specifically Vaughn and the geode lady, because it's confirmed in this route they still see each other and stuff, which I still find that really funny. I don't know. The objects, you get to see how they affect you and what they do in the real world. You never hear anything about them with each other, and I just find that really interesting, except for the ones that are already couples, the ones that you bring together, they stay together and whatever. You hear how they visit the player a lot, at least. I don't know if they see each other, like if the visits co-align where they go to see the player and someone else is already there or whatever. So it's nice that they get to see you, but do they get to see each other, and what is that like? Because especially because I know a lot of them travel, one of them is literally dead, some of them live with you, but a lot of them are said to live in your town. Therefore, they all live in the same. A lot of them live in the same town as each other. I can imagine if it's people in the same town or whatever, they kind of bump into each other at least once. What are their thoughts of that? Especially the ones, I can imagine like the kitchen crew, especially because there's so many damn people in there, and the fact that like as objects, a lot of them, you place things on your table. There's like a billion things in your kitchen. And the fact that a lot of these characters I especially think of the kitchen, they have the most interactions with each other. They're in so many of each other's routes, or just being forced to be roommates together for who knows how fucking long, honestly. I mean, Dolly and Keith are both confirmed to be like hundreds of years old or whatever. I mean, they're also dust and a skeleton key, so I can imagine that. But like, since the objects aren't literally just the objects in your home, they're the personification of like every version of that object. I'm assuming they're all like hundreds of years old or whatever, except for Skylar, obviously. She's like the baby of the group for being invented recently, but like the fact that these people have lived together and their ups and downs, and some of them are friends and hate each other and whatever for years. Can you imagine that? Of like, you become a human and you get to live your own life and you bump into someone in the grocery store. Let's say it's like someone you were literally next to as an object, and now you're seeing each other again as humans. What goes through your mind? I wonder. Okay, where was I going with the Fritz thing? I'm sorry. Oh yeah, with River. Yeah. Winifred does mention about how they go way back. River was the first one to visit her at the house. So I guess they did kind of connect anyway, unless it's like you send your water to the water heater. Of course, that's probably the person they're going to see first. And stuff, but I just find that interesting. And then Bathsheba apparently also has feelings for Winifred. I wonder how old Winifred is, because like she sounds like she's like an older adult, and the hair confuses me, but her skin doesn't look wrinkled, because we have characters that like do look old, like Stella has wrinkles and Keith is supposed to be like an old man. I don't know how old, because like I said, he illustration wise looks like he could be anywhere from like 50s to like 75 or something. They don't look like elderly, and sometimes that has to do with their routes. Again, it's confusing because like Stepford looks like he's in his 30s, but his thing is about being an aging sports star. But then again, sports are weird, where it's like if you're not physically fit, you do have to quit early. So I don't know. We do have characters that are old. Winifred doesn't have like a damn wrinkle on her, but she just seems like someone that's older than everyone else. So I don't know, but like, good for her. And then you can teach her on like the more positive routes of like, yeah, being poly is cool, and you can have that much love for people in your heart. and it's like a realization for her of like, whoa, yeah, I can do that. And she goes to talk to the people, and I like that she, with her love confession, where she's like, I am gonna talk to them, but I want to talk to you first. And you're like, why me? And then she confesses that you grew on her and stuff, and she wants to include you in the poly group. And I like with those where the characters mention how it's like, it'll be a lot of work, but it'll end up being worth it. I think that's cool. I've never been in one of those types of relationships myself, so I don't know what they're like, but the game, it's not something I had an opinion on or anything, because I didn't know anyone in those or anything really about them. But the game made me aware of them, I guess, or more aware of them, and made me like, with the way the game explains it and the characters and stuff, and I'm like, I could see myself being in something like that if the opportunity came or whatever. Anyway, I like Winifred's design. I like her hair being like a pipe. I like it's not even a shirt, it's just water covering her chest. I like that it's orange and blue of like cooling down and heating water. I was going to say I wish there was more metal in her design, and then I remembered her dress is literally the giant metal tube. I think that's kind of cool, actually, and that's a good way to, because I think about it, I'm like, damn, a giant metal tube, how do you design that as a person? But making it without making it weird, of making it like a skirt, and then having her dress be the liquid inside, and oh my gosh, those are her shoes? I don't like her shoes. They're like fire slipper things. I do like the little drop tassel things on the bottom of her dress. I think that's cool. I've never seen those before because it gets cut off in the sprite. I didn't know she had human legs. I didn't even realize that the fire thing inside of her was a dress, because if I look at her sprite and I zoom in, I only see like it looks like it gets cut off or something from like the perspective of the game or whatever. I thought she was just like a human top, and I didn't realize the metal portion was an outfit she's like wearing on her, kind of like overalls in a sense, because I see the pipes on her shoulders. I thought she just didn't have legs. I thought her bottom half of the body was metal, and I thought that was so cool. I'm a little disappointed. I like her portrait. She has one of my favorite, when like characters feel an emotion super heavily and it affects them and stuff. I like with hers when she gets excited, the little paper warnings in her all flutter out. And I love the illustration for her, the water on her chest, and the way it becomes a billion times more detailed when she feels something. And just the way it flows and the way it's drawn is so freaking cool. But I love the one when she gets too excited or romantic about something, and the way the water in her dress looks like it's going to actually freaking burst. It's so cool. Just the way they handle their concept of being a water heater and making such a cool design out of it is nice. I don't like her realized outfit. I'm sorry, it's like a downgrade, but I get it's supposed to be the same concept. Both her and River have these dresses where it's supposed to look like ocean waves or whatever, but because it's so less detailed and it's fabric, and just the way it's layered, I think for me too, of turning literal liquid into a dress, it just feels like a bummer. I do like that her hair pretty much ends up being the same, and I like that it actually has oh no, it's always kind of blue and yellow. I never noticed that. I do like her earrings. I like that they stay the same. They look like something I'd wear, and the necklace, she's like kind of chic, and I like that the metal ends up becoming a shirt and it becomes this like shiny silver shirt and stuff. I think it's cool. So I sort of like her design. I really like her makeup though. I think it's so fun, of like the blue and the pink, and then on like her eyes and her lips and stuff. I think her dialogue's kind of fun too. I like how she can be kind of sassy. I like the line of like, did you just ask your water heater what she does? Or like sometimes it seems like she's kind of like teasing you a bit, and she sort of likes it, but not in like a mean way. It's like I don't know. But yeah, I like that she's flirty and sassy and teaching her that being in a poly relationship is fine. But my favorite... Oh, wait, hold on a minute. Okay, there's concept art of her where she has a different outfit. It looks really cool. I like how there's just a picture of a water heater shoved in here, apparently. I like this concept outfit so much more, where she has like this blue veil and all this gold jewelry. It looks so cool. Apparently there's supposed to have been a Hammer character. That's interesting, because the concept art picture I'm seeing is her with a second character, and the character is this person in a fancy coat with hair that looks like a hammer. I think that's really interesting. In fact, there could have been not a design I would have expected for a hammer. I can see why the character was cut, because Tony is your toolbox and he's like all your tools. Anyway, yeah, I actually like Winifred's personality. I actually do kind of like her now that I'm talking about her and stuff. And I like some parts of her design. I think her route being about two different things, starting to be about stories and then being about people, and the way it intertwines is actually really cool. Okay, we're going to talk about the stories she tells. So her whole storyline is about the people that used to live in your house, about a family that lived there and a couple, or no, it's two of them actually. One of them is about a couple that used to take steamy showers and then they ended up fighting. I really like the collectible of her perspective of seeing the couple, or no, wait, she doesn't, I don't think she actually physically sees them, where she hears them taking a shower with another person or something, and I think she does actually see them, because it's a perspective of someone looking at a door and seeing the shadows of the people arguing. It almost reminds me of like a kid watching their parents fight or something. I like that perspective, or it just makes me kind of sad of like, you know, the objects are stuck in your house and they can hear all your conversations, whether they're sentient or not. And like, for the most part, the player, you know, I'm assuming treats the objects fine. I say for the most part because, you know, some of them are in poor maintenance or put together correctly or whatever. I don't know if that's entirely the player's character's fault though, because with Shelly, it seemed like it was someone else who installed her who got it wrong. I don't know for Eddie, because it's mentioned about the broken wire thing and that the power is failing because there's something like actually wrong with him. I don't know if that's anything to do with the player, or maybe if he was maintained better, the route would have been, you know, different in a sense. So maybe that is kind of the player's fault. But yeah, it's not, I mean, the objects do have, some of them do have like rust or I think dirt a little bit. I noticed on some of them, like Keys has a handprint on her, so there's stuff like that. Like the objects are clearly used and whatever, but there's nothing that's like broken or something. That would be so cool actually, if an object broke and the player knew they're sentient and just refused to help them, to get them fixed or whatever. Anyway, but yeah, it doesn't seem like the player was like maliciously using their furniture, or like, I don't know. We don't know if they're the kind of person that like kicks something when they get upset or whatever. Though Cherami does mention the thing when she becomes human of like, oh, now we don't have to worry about people kicking their foot into the chair and blaming the chair, even though they're the one that put her there and stuff. But that's probably just a generic chair thing, which is true. Which is the fault of the player, of that damn kitchen chair that keeps sticking out that I kept bumping into and hearing her giggle and whatever. I didn't really bump into objects that much. Sometimes I didn't even notice if I did. Like, I know some of them grunt if you bump into things. But yeah, that would suck emotionally as an like, if you were in a house where someone with the humans, I don't know, let's say someone that gets like abused, or if they get into arguments a lot or whatever, I can imagine so many horrible scenarios the objects would have to witness, or even if the objects are used in those scenarios, oof. But I can imagine it of like an object being in a house of someone that's like about to divorce or whatever, like what Winifred saw, And it's like, maybe you have an opinion on it, maybe you don't, maybe you're attached to your house owners, maybe the objects, maybe it plays out like Romeo and Juliet, where the couple got divorced and the two flamingos that were lovers were separated in the divorce, and the male flamingo is haunted by it forever. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know, but that would suck from the perspective of an object, actually. Okay, I don't want to talk about... No, we are. Anyway, I liked the story about the couple and how it leads into tragedy. I thought it was interesting. I think my favorite one, I think the first one she tells... I don't know, I kept thinking about it. I know the player character is an adult, but it makes me imagine... I wouldn't be surprised if someone wrote a fanfic about it, of if a player's younger cousin or something visit, or how would sentient objects be around kids or whatever, because you only ever hear about it with Wendellin's opinion, and then Winifred talking about it. There's a part where she tells a story about a family. Oh no, the couples are the owners. They used to have a family over for parties. I don't know if it was during the 70s thing or not. Where I just remember, for some reason, the detail. Oh shit, it's almost midnight. It's 11:45 p.m. I haven't showered. I am on character number 62. Damn it. Okay. That's okay. I'm sorry. This is 4 hours, potentially 5 again. I'm sorry. This is just gonna keep happening. I can't shut up with this game. It's my fault. Yeah, she mentions about a kid in the family playing hide and seek, and that the kid liked to hide in that room. And I don't know. I think it's just because it sounded really wholesome, even though no one has the glasses at that point and knows that the furniture is secretly alive and has opinions on you. But I could picture in my head of the kid hiding behind her for hide and seek, which she'd be a great place for hide and seek, sort of. I mean, on one hand, she's a giant metal tube, and she's shoved into the corner of that room, and it's such a tiny room anyway. So the fact that you're hiding in the closet, but that you're hiding behind this big tube is perfect hiding place. To the point where I didn't even find the room immediately or whatever. So yeah, it was hidden from me too. But she mentioned something about the kid liked hiding there, and she would kind of hum softly, and it made me wonder if the kid probably couldn't hear her, but the fact that she was doing that, of trying to interact with this person that can't, even though they can't hear you, I thought was kind of sweet, actually. Or I like the idea of the furniture being alive, whether in this universe of whether you had the date viators or not, or if, let's say you never did, you're a normal person in this universe, but the furniture comes to care about you anyway and is doing stuff like that, and you just never know about it or whatever. I think that's interesting. I was gonna say something with that. What was I going to say? I had a second thought connected to that, or I was gonna continue that. Or I could imagine it if it was and that would be so much more embarrassing in terms of your little quirks in the space of your own home and your privacy of imagine, and it's nice that the character moved into the house as an adult. I mean, you get it a bit with Teddy, but imagine it's if it's your childhood home and you've lived your whole life there, and then you get the date viators, what it was like. I mean, I don't think I'd want to date the furniture at that point. I feel like it would be a friendship relationship maybe, but I mean, I guess you do have that with Teddy, where it's, I think, described as you're growing up the same age of, this is your childhood friend to friendship lovers story, which I find really sweet. I love that. Have I talked about Teddy yet? No, I haven't. Okay, that's for the next video. Damn, kind of want to talk about Teddy. Okay, anyway, yeah, that's it for our water heater. Next is... Actually, you know what? I'm going to stop here because the next one is Scandelabra. I have thoughts. I have a completely changed opinion now because I did his route last, or very close to last. Literally the last 3 people I did was Maggie Sinclair and Scandelabra, because I was trying to actually do Scandelabra's route this time, and do the love ending thing and the stuff with the multiple personalities. So I will save it for next time because this is already 4 hours. So we're on data dex number, I feel weird calling it data dex, I want to keep saying date dex. We're on date dex number 64 out of 90 something, because we've already talked about some of these people. Okay, but I think that's a good place to stop. Like, I didn't get through the full, like, getting the 70 or whatever, but I think that's fine. I'm a little tired. I talked less about the objects and more about this game being sentient objects is silly, but like, if you think about it too hard, there's so many things to think about, and it's kind of fun for me anyway. But yeah, we'll continue next time. I think this is a good point to stop. And I wasn't having fun with this originally. I mean, not with the first video. I mean, like, today I was like, I was gonna, I think, watch TV or I didn't really have plans or whatever, and my heart was not in this game anymore, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to talk about it, but I feel like it's left my brain. And then as soon as I started talking about it and going into my opinions, I immediately latched on again in I want to talk about everything in this game forever. That's probably going to keep happening, where I'm going to like lose interest and then gain interest as soon as I open my mouth. We'll see. All right, bye.